Chapter 1801. Yun Jian had spoken in Portuguese instead of Mandarin. The people present had limited exposure to languages, so naturally they could not understand what Yun Jian was saying. However, the man who was being held down by Yun Jian could understand. Since the man was an assassin, he must have been trained and learned many languages. Perhaps the man knew fewer languages than Yun Jian, but the Portuguese that Yun Jian used was definitely something that the man knew. Since there were quite a number of people who spoke Portuguese around the world, there was a high proportion of them who received missions there. Naturally, it was one of the languages that they had to learn. As expected, the man's face darkened as soon as Yun Jian finished her sentence. From afar, Gu Junjian, Yu Chaoning, and Kai Yonghen could clearly see the man's complexion change at lightning speed. His face, which had a trace of blood, suddenly turned pale. If you dare reveal my identity in public, it won't be as simple as death. Just as Kai Yonghen, Yu Chaoning, and the rest were shocked by what Yun Jian had said, Yun Jian spoke again. She continued speaking to the man in fluent Portuguese. Even if the man was caught by the police, he would definitely die as an international criminal. He must have known that as an international assassin or secret agent, there was only one outcome for being caught or failing a mission: death. Yun Jian was not stupid. Since she dared to reveal her identity to this international criminal, she knew that he would not reveal it. Yun Jian's words earlier were a warning to the man that if he dared to spout nonsense, it would not be as simple as death. She had 1,000 ways to make people experience that the most painful thing in the world was not death, but living a life worse than death. The feeling of being tortured to death was excruciating pain that came from the depths of one's soul. Slaying God was known for her ruthlessness in the underworld. Not only was she powerful, but more importantly, she was cruel and ruthless. The way she dealt with people who were in the same profession was terrifying. Brainwashed killers referred to killers who had been brainwashed. Such people did not have their own emotions and thoughts. They only knew how to do things according to their masters. Even if they were caught, no one could get anything out of them because they only listened to their masters. However, the way Slaying God dealt with people back then had once made the brainwashed assassin, who was known to have the strongest willpower in the world, beg for death. In the end, he gave up the mastermind. Of course, the man believed that Yun Jian had the ability to capture him from the police and make him suffer a fate worse than death. A fate worse than death. Therefore, the man would rather be caught and executed by the police than reveal Yun Jian's identity. No one knew what Yun Jian said in the language of the country, but everyone could clearly see the man's body tremble slightly. As a grown man, his head was stepped on by Yun Jian. Not only did he not feel humiliated, but he was so scared that his whole body trembled. Whether it was Gu Junjian, Kai Yonghen, or Yu Chaoning, all of them were dumbfounded at this moment. It wasn't the first time they had caught such a felon. Not to mention that the man in front of them was an international felon. Even if it was an ordinary felon, when they were about to be caught by the police, they would take the last resort to ask for help to fight for a chance to escape. No one would want to give up hope of survival. But what did they see? Why was this international criminal, this man, running away so vigorously just now? He looked like he would rather die than submit. Now that Yun Jian was stepping on his head with her foot, he did not feel humiliated at all. Instead, he was trembling all over. Was he afraid of Yun Jian? What? Was it because of what Yun Jian said in the language of the country? Kai Yonghen could not hold back his words. He walked up to Yun Jian in front of everyone and looked at her. Chapter 1802. At this moment, Yun Jian's foot was still on the man's head. She lowered her head slightly and looked at the man coldly. When she heard Kai Yonghen's words, she raised her head slightly and glanced at Kai Yonghen and the people around him. Do you want to know what I said to him? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and looked at Kai Yonghen with a strange smile. Kai Yonghen took a deep breath for no reason. He took a deep breath and nodded at Yun Jian. He was curious, not just curious. From when Yun Jian guessed which path the international criminal would take, to when they lost track of the international criminal, Yun Jian could still figure out every path the international criminal would take. Then she caught up with him and jumped out of the car. At this moment, she said something that made the international criminal so scared. Originally, Gu Yunjian's mission was to delay the international criminal for 10 minutes, and the military would immediately bring people over to arrest him. Even Kai Yonghen, Yu Chaoning, and the others were not confident that they could delay the international criminal for 10 minutes. However, Yun Jian was good. The international criminal, a 2S international criminal, was as easy as killing an ant in her hands. Not only did she stop him, she even stepped on him like a cabbage. What was even more bizarre was that the other party did not even dare to say a word. Do you really want to know what I said to him just now? She stepped on the man's head and slid it twice like she was stepping on a soccer ball. Her long thighs were wrapped in a pair of black tights. She looked at Kai Yonghen again with a smirk and repeated what she said just now. Hearing Yunjian repeat what she said just now, Kai Yonghen and the people standing beside him were slightly stunned. However, Kai Yonghen still said, yes. However, before Kai Yonghen could finish his sentence, Yunjian's voice suddenly rang out. Her voice was crisp and clear. Get down. Yunjian's words came out of nowhere. Gu Junjian, Kai Yonghen and the others were all stunned. Although they didn't know what Yunjian meant, they still bent down as fast as they could. Behind Gu Junjian and the others, the subordinate of the international criminal who had been driving the grey Bugatti Veyron earlier made a comeback. He held a Ruger P345 automatic pistol in his hand and fired a bullet at Yunjian's head. Gu Junjian and the rest stood opposite Yunjian. This international criminal's underling was standing in the dark. If Gu Junjian and the rest did not lie down, they would be accidentally injured. Yunjian. After she finished speaking, Gu Junjian and the rest quickly lay down. She dodged the bullet that was aimed at her head and kicked the international criminal towards Gu Junjian like a rubber ball. Suppress him. After she finished speaking, Yunjian pounced towards the international criminal's underling. Her speed was as fast as a cheetah. She was so fast that the naked eye couldn't see her clearly. Yunjian's conversation with Kai Yonghen earlier was to let the international criminal's underling, who was hiding in the dark, find the right opportunity to attack her and then counterattack. Gu Yunjian's fighting ability was not to be underestimated. After the international criminal was kicked by Yunjian, his entire body went limp. Gu Junjian pounced over and pinned the international criminal down. The international criminal did not even have time to react and escape. At this time, Kai Yonghen and the rest finally reacted and went to help Gu Junjian. However, their eyes suddenly caught a glimpse of Yunjian not far away. She was dashing towards the man who had tried to assassinate her. When the man saw Yunjian dashing towards him, he was frightened and fired a few more shots at Yunjian. Seeing this, Yunjian pounced on the ground and rolled twice on the ground. When she stood up, she was already close to the man. Even the veterans in the army couldn't compare to her in terms of skills. She killed decisively like a grim reaper. Kai Yonghen and the rest who were far away trembled. They saw that Yunjian had already snatched the gun from the man's hand and tied him up with his own jacket in a few moves. The moment the people from the army rushed over, this was the scene that they saw. A teenage girl was stepping on the man's back with one foot. The man's stomach was on the ground and he was tied up by his own jacket. His struggle was futile. The girl's men from the army rushed to the scene. After lighting up the scene, they turned their heads and squinted their eyes to look over. Chapter 1803. Initially, the people in the military only wanted Gu Junjian to help them stall for time so that the military would not be able to arrest this international criminal. Because the person they wanted to arrest was an international criminal, they sent their best troops this time. But when the group of people arrived at the scene, they saw Gu Junjian and his men squatting on the ground and suppressing the international criminal. Yunjian was stepping on the international criminal's subordinate's back, not at all afraid that the international criminal's subordinate would be able to escape from her. This scene made the troops who arrived tremble. What the F***ck was going on? They rushed here to prepare for a big fight. Even if they were to accidentally sacrifice themselves in the battle with the international criminal, it was possible. But now, before they could even make a move, the international criminal was already subdued by Gu Junjian and this little girl? Although they were surprised, the group of people who rushed over still heaved a sigh of relief. Fighting with an international criminal who had a gun in his hands. There would definitely be casualties. These people in the army all had relatives. If one person died, it would mean that they would harm an entire family. But for the sake of the people, they had to fight. If they didn't get rid of these people in this era, how could there be peace in the modern era? But what these people didn't expect was that Gu Junjian and his men actually managed to subdue the international criminal. They only had a few people. They actually managed to subdue the international criminal. This was a great achievement. The leader of the men in the army walked towards Gu Junjian. This man obviously knew Gu Junjian. When he spoke, Yunjian could tell that this man was the one who called Gu Junjian just now. The man was stunned. Then he looked at Gu Junjian and said, Gu Junjian, Gu Junjian. Oh, good job. You actually brought people to arrest him. Ahem. The ones who arrested him weren't us. It was her. At this moment, Gu Yunjian's university classmate, the man named Yu Chaoning, looked at Yunjian and said, What? The ones who arrested him weren't you guys but this little girl. The man and the people standing behind him were all stunned. You can take him away. Dad, Mom has been waiting for a long time. Let's go back. Just as the man and the people standing behind him were all stunned, Yunjian spoke to Gu Junjian. Obviously, she didn't want to make a big deal out of this. Old Wang, my daughter doesn't want to be in the limelight. You know that. We'll leave first. After Gu Junjian handed the international criminal over to the man, he said to the man. The man called Old Wang was stunned. He opened his mouth and finally nodded. After Yunjian retrieved the necklace she had given Qin Yiru from the man, she turned to get into the jeep with Gu Junjian and the others. Chapter 1804. Wang Defeng was not wise, but Wang Defeng's husband was still a very wise man. As a soldier, his thoughts were naturally not like Wang Defeng's. Wang Defeng opened her mouth, but in the end she could not say anything. Her husband actually said that everything that happened just now was all thanks to Yunjian. Without Yunjian they would not have been able to complete the mission. This explanation shocked Wang Defeng so much that she was stunned. Then Sunina, who was beside her, also trembled. Hey, you guys don't know, but that international criminal just now, what international criminal is that? Yunjian's daughter just stepped on that international criminal's head, and that international criminal was so scared that he was trembling all over. Now that the incident had passed, Gu Yunjian's university classmate used a storytelling tone to narrate what happened just now. I'll say. Even if Yunjian's daughter just exploded that international criminal's head, that international criminal did not dare to say a word. Yunjian's daughter is simply too amazing. Ah. Gu Yunjian's university classmate was getting more and more excited as he spoke, but what he said scared Wang Defeng and Sunina so much that their faces turned pale. Especially when he said that she exploded that international criminal's head, Sunina looked deeply at Yunjian, and her face turned pale. Sunina had been staying at Gu Yunjian's house for the past few days to freeload, and she was already shameless to the extreme. Later, when Gu Junjian told her about it, Sunina's reaction told everyone that no matter what he said, she was still going to freeload at his house. However, at this moment, Sunina looked at Yunjian and her face turned pale. She was really scared. Who could tell her why Qin Yiru looked so easy to bully, but she actually had such a terrifying daughter. At this moment, Sunina was hugging her son, Su Liao's head, but she was thinking in her heart. She would never go to Gu Yunjian's house again. It was too scary. Compared to her own life, going to Gu Yunjian's house was simply risking her life. Hence, Sunina slipped away without anyone noticing, and she did not even say goodbye. When Yunjian saw this, a cold smile formed on her face. Naturally, she knew what Sunina was thinking. Once she was home, she took a shower and packed her luggage simply. Tomorrow she was going to the countryside with Chen Sini. She was going to stay there for a period of time, so naturally she had to bring some necessities. The moment she went to bed, she heard a text message notification sound from her phone. There was a text message from Huaxia's text message. Where are you going tomorrow? Go to bed, sleep early. She's text a text message, a text a reply. She replied to replies, text a reply to him, reply to reply, a reply to reply. Take a guess too. After sending the text message, Yunjian turned off her phone and went to sleep. Ce did not send any more text messages, because he knew that Yunjian was about to fall asleep. The next day, when Yunjian arrived at Qin Sini's house, she saw Zhang Xiaofeng helping Qin Sini to load her bags into her car. When he saw that Yunjian was carrying a simple shoulder bag, he looked at Yunjian and shouted, "Master!" Obviously, Zhang Xiaofeng was going to the countryside as well, and he had probably asked for leave from school. Qin Sini had already gotten into the car. She had just recovered, and it was not suitable for her to stand for too long. Now her head was leaning against the car. "Have you set off?" Yunjian asked Zhang Xiaofeng as she spoke. "Master, we're waiting for one more person." Zhang Xiaofeng smiled wickedly at Yunjian, as though he was betraying his master. Yunjian glanced sideways at Zhang Xiaofeng. Just as she was wondering what Zhang Xiaofeng's expression meant, someone suddenly wrapped his arms around her waist, and a fresh, familiar scent wafted into her nose. It was him. Ce hugged Yunjian intimately from behind. "Big brother Ce, you're here. I'll leave first. I'm going to look for Sini." Zhang Xiaofeng laughed as he glanced at Ce. Then he ran into the car like a wisp of smoke. He originally wanted to call Ce Grand Master, since he was his master's husband. Chapter 1805. Yunjian was still puzzled yesterday about why Ce had sent her a message asking her where she was going, but she did not think much about it. Today Ce had appeared. She pressed her lips together as Ce hugged her from the back. Yunjian looked up at his handsome face and asked, "Didn't you go back to the organization?" "I'm done with the organization. I'll be by your side for the time being." Ce looked at Yun Jian lovingly, only reflecting her in his deep and beautiful eyes. It was Zhang Xiaofeng who told Ce that Yun Jian was going to the countryside to accompany Qin Sini to recuperate. Ce rarely appeared in the past few days after he received the news. He would either show up for a while or leave after a while, staying in the organization to finish all his work and plan to go to the countryside with Yun Jian. Leaving all the worldly affairs behind, no one could disturb him and Xiao Jian in the tranquil environment of the countryside. Ce had even sent Adam and Emo Sun away this time. Before he came to look for Yun Jian, Ce had told Adam and Emo Sun to go wherever they liked. Just as Ce's plan was going well, Yun Jian suddenly suggested, Xiao Zhu and the other two haven't come out to play for a long time. Why don't we apply for leave for them and take them out for a walk? Before Yun Jian could finish, Ce's thin lips moved to reject her directly. Oh. Yun Jian was speechless. Yun Jian blinked. If they were not at the entrance of Qin Sini's house right now, Ce would have cupped Yun Jian's head and pressed his lips against hers directly when he saw how adorable Yun Jian was. Jian, we're leaving. My grandpa's house is a little far from Longmen City, we have to depart earlier. At this moment, Qin Sini's voice sounded. She couldn't move her head so she could only shout from the car. 2 hours later, Qin Sini's private car went around many mountains and finally arrived at a place called Jinda Village. Jinda Village was a village near the mountains. From here, it would take half an hour to reach the nearest town. Moreover, Jinda Village was not rich. Every family's house was only 1 story high. When Yun Jian was reborn, she came to Xinjiang Town. Xinjiang Town was a town while this was just a village. Yun Jian used to roam the peak of the world, and the simplest place she had been to after her rebirth was probably Xinjiang Town. However, a town was still a town. It was definitely much better than the countryside. The people in Jinda Village were poor and there was no place to work. They had to go to town to work, but the daily trip to town was not enough to cover their salary. Therefore, the people here usually farmed for a living. Qin Sini's family was not poor. Her mother had asked her grandpa to leave Jinda Village more than once, but he refused to leave. Since her grandpa's wife, Qin Sini's grandmother, had passed away early, Qin Sini's grandfather and grandmother had been living in Jinda Village since they were children. From learning how to walk to running and jumping, getting to know each other, getting married and staying together for the rest of their lives, Qin Sini's grandmother had passed away early. Her grandpa did not leave because he did not want to leave the land where he had lived with his lover for the rest of his life. When one was gone, it was an obsession to stay with a hometown that had changed. Some people could stay with this obsession for the rest of their lives. We're here. This is the place. Qin Sini told Yun Jian as she turned to look at Yun Jian after getting off the car with Zhang Xiaofeng's help. The car was parked at the village entrance. After Yun Jian and the rest alighted, the car drove back to Longmen City. It was already 7 in the evening when they left at 5. There was still a hint of afterglow lingering in the sky, looking beautiful. Chapter 1806. It was easy to find the first house at the entrance of the village. The houses here were all 1 story high and were not made of cement. Instead, they were made of mud and tiles. These mud and tile houses were still left in many villages in the modern era and were not demolished. Many villages in the modern era had been replaced with mud and tile houses. However, in 1999, most of the houses in the villages were still mud and tile houses. These houses did not look sturdy and were very simple. It was obvious that these were the houses of the poor. However, in this era all the houses in the villages were like this. Those who could build cement houses were the richest in the village. The roads in the countryside were not like those in the town or the city. The roads here were all bumpy and filled with cement. It was unrealistic for some people who were used to living in the big cities to move here permanently. However, it was very romantic for rich people to stay here for a short period of time. Fly, 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 fly. The butterfly is flying. Yun Jian saw a few children playing at the entrance of the first house at the entrance of the village. Dong Dong, is Grandpa home? Qin Sini looked at one of the children and called out to him. The boy was called He Dong Dong. He was Qin Sini's cousin. He was 6 years old this year and was very smart. Sister Sini? He Dong Dong saw Qin Sini and stopped playing with his friends. He turned around and ran into the house. Grandpa, Grandpa. Sister Sini and brother Xiaofeng brought a pretty sister and a handsome brother back. He Dong Dong shouted as he ran into the house. After a while, an old man with a walking stick came out. This old man was Qin Sini's grandfather, He Qing. He Qing used to be a teacher and was a role model. He was very strict with his children since they were young. Therefore, Qin Sini's mother, He Xia, had the temperament of a lady from a wealthy family. He Qing was now relying on his pension to get by. Sini and Xiaofeng are back? Do you have guests? Quick, come in. He Qing invited Yun Jian and Ce into the house in a friendly manner. Although the house was simple and crude, He Qing still made a cup of tea for Yun Jian and Ce. Yun Jian and Ce didn't dislike it at all. Our pretty big sister and handsome big brother boyfriend and girlfriend? At this moment He Dong Dong, who had been playing outside, surrounded Yun Jian and Ce with a group of friends and asked curiously. Yun Jian and Ce had outstanding looks. They had never seen such a beautiful young lady and handsome young man before, so they all rushed into the house. A few children even ran to the village to gather all the other children to watch Yun Jian and Ce. Surrounded by so many small heads, Yun Jian felt a little embarrassed. Yes. However, Ce, who was sitting next to Yun Jian, didn't look embarrassed at all in front of so many children. He even hugged Yun Jian's waist and hooked his arm around her waist. The handsome Junyan made all the children stare at him in a daze. How could there be such a good-looking big brother in this world? I heard from my big brother that boyfriend and girlfriend means husband and wife. Husband and wife have to kiss and hug each other at night. Shameful. A little girl hugged the little boy next to her and even pouted to show everyone that she wanted to kiss him. Does that mean hugging each other and bumping into each other like my parents? Last time, I secretly saw my dad hugging my mom without wearing any clothes. They were sticking to each other and bumping into each other. A smart kid added. As he spoke, he turned to look at Yun Jian and Ce and asked innocently, "What's wrong?" Chapter 1807. The child asked innocently. He even blinked his eyes when he asked the question. His small head cooperated with the other curious little heads beside him. He didn't even realize that he had just asked such a shocking question. Yun Jian, Ce, Qin Sini, and Zhang Xiaofeng were sitting at an old-fashioned square table in the main room of Qin Sini's grandfather, He Qing's house. At this moment, Yun Jian and Ce were sitting close to each other. Ce was holding Yun Jian's slender waist with one hand intimately. Qin Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng were sitting at the square table, each occupying a seat. After hearing the innocent child's words, Zhang Xiaofeng spat out a mouthful of tea water mixed with his own unique scent. The moment he spat out the tea water, Zhang Xiaofeng turned his head fiercely to prevent himself from spitting the tea water on anyone present. Cough, 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 cough. Zhang Xiaofeng was viciously robbed of his breath. He really didn't expect these mischievous children to say such things. What was worse was that these children were looking at Yun Jian and Ce with expectant gazes, waiting for Yun Jian and Ce's reply. This cough, cough, cough. I see that there is still some sunlight outside. Sini, you haven't been in the sun for a long time. Let me bring you out to experience it. Zhang Xiaofeng randomly came up with an excuse and walked over to Qin Sini to help her up before walking out. At this time the sun had already set. Perhaps the sun set later in Jinda village and rose later in the morning, so at this time, there was still a trace of afterglow outside. Grandfather He Qing was personally cooking in the kitchen. He said that he wanted to properly entertain Yun Jian and Ce, these two guests who came from afar. After Zhang Xiaofeng found an excuse to bring Qin Sini out of the house, there was only Ce and Yun Jian left in the house, along with the rowdy kids who were asking questions without knowing the gravity of the situation. Seeing that Ce and Yun Jian were silent, Ce sized up Yun Jian with his pair of beautiful eyes that made everything around them pale in comparison. The child who asked the question earlier innocently asked again, "Pretty sister, will handsome brother bump into each other? My mom said that only two people who love each other will do this. Doesn't handsome brother like pretty sister?" After the child finished speaking, all the children looked at Yun Jian and Ce curiously. Yun Jian's face was flushed the moment the child spoke. Ce's lips curled into a wicked smile. From beginning to end, he didn't move his eyes away from Yun Jian's body. Under the expectant gazes of the group of children, Ce withdrew his hand from Yun Jian's slender waist and said with a gentle gaze, "Her entire body is mine. Every part of her body belongs to me, so, what do you think?" Ce didn't say it out loud. When the child asked such an innocent and bashful question, Ce and Yun Jian reacted differently. Yun Jian's face turned slightly red, and her cheeks even turned pink. On the other hand, Ce's initial reaction was to raise his handsome face. That devilishly handsome face of his really deserved a beating. Then will handsome brother and beautiful sister really bump into each other? The child opened his not-so-good-looking face and smiled. He seemed to be bored, so he asked another question. Idiot, handsome brother means that he and pretty sister definitely won't stop at bumping into each other. At this moment, Qin Sini's cousin He Dong Dong added on mischievously. After he finished speaking, Yun Jian's face turned even redder. The surrounding children all giggled. The child was still unsatisfied. He looked at Ce and asked curiously, "Then will the handsome brother hug the beautiful sister while bumping into her, kissing and hugging at the same time? My parents will do that." Chapter 1808. Yunjian felt like smacking Ce to death. He was probably the only person in the world who could say such things in front of a large group of children without blushing or skipping a beat. Most importantly, the group of children in front of him were all inexperienced children who did not know much about the world and were not scheming. They were all children who spoke without thinking. "What are you talking about?" Yunjian nudged Ce with her elbow as she was pulled into Ce's embrace. To Ce, it sounded like she was being coquettish with him. Subconsciously, his lips curled upwards. Ce, who did not feel any pain from being nudged by Yunjian, wished he could keep her in his arms for the rest of his life. He was willing to listen to her whining for the rest of his life, just like how she whined to him just now. He really wanted to devour her without leaving any bones behind so that she could never leave his side. "Do you like children, Xiaojian?" Ce's lips pressed against Yunjian's ear, his mellow and alluring voice lingering around Yunjian's ears. Yunjian heard it clearly. Yunjian did not think much of Ce's sudden question. Children. If one were to ask if Yunjian liked children, one would have to look at the type of children they were. Why was that? Yunjian liked children like her younger brother, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya, who were obedient and a little lively when necessary. However, if they were like the brats she had met in the past who were unreasonable, and took the lead to bully kids younger than them, if they were brats like that, she would not like them. Ce watched as Yunjian's pretty face wore a thoughtful expression. As he watched, he could not help breaking into a grin. The group of children who stood around watching Yunjian and Ce were like curious babies. They did not make a sound but kept looking at Yunjian and Ce. "Does pretty sister like a kid like me? Not only can I recite the text but I can also help my parents with the housework." A little boy confidently patted his chest and said to Yunjian, Me too, me too. I'm so cute, pretty sister must like me, right?" A little girl with 2 ponytails shook her head. Her ponytails swayed left and right as she stood in front of Yunjian. She looked at Yunjian expectantly and asked. With this question, the surrounding children all rushed to ask Yunjian if she liked them in front of Yunjian. It was true that the children in the countryside were wild, but these children would not fight over this matter. They just argued verbally. "Pretty sister is my cousin's friend. Of course she likes me the most." At this time, Dong Dong shook her little head and said confidently, "Pretty sister won't like you. I'm the cutest and prettiest sister. She must like someone like me the most." The little girl with 2 ponytails rushed to say. After saying this, the little girl blinked her eyes and looked at Yunjian. She looked at Yunjian with a pair of eyes that seemed to be able to speak. The sound of arguing in the house about which child Yunjian liked the most could be heard at the door. Zhang Xiaofeng and Qin Sini sat on the bench at the door. Because Qin Sini's head hurt, Zhang Xiaofeng let Qin Sini lean her head on his shoulder. The cousins who usually bickered the most were the most harmonious at this time. If it was in the past, Zhang Xiaofeng would always tease Qin Sini. But recently, because Qin Sini's head hit the ground and she almost died, he was very careful even when supporting Qin Sini. They would still argue a little, but now it was Zhang Xiaofeng who was the weaker one. "Hey, good thing we came out. Those kids in the house are too scary." Hearing the noise coming from the house, Zhang Xiaofeng could not help but complain. Qin Sini leaned her head on Zhang Xiaofeng's shoulder and grinned. She was really happy that Yunjian could be so happy. At this moment, a muffled male voice came from the house. That mellow and pleasant voice immediately stopped the quarreling children in the house. The words that came out of Ce's mouth were overbearing and arrogant, as if she was fighting over a lollipop with a child. Chapter 1809. Ce's expression was fierce, like a bully who had snatched a lollipop from a child's hand and told the child to go to the store to buy another lollipop for him. Ce's behavior stunned the group of children present for quite a while. Among them was a 4-year-old girl who had been standing in the corner since the beginning. She had been looking at Yunjian and Ce with great interest. In the end, it didn't take long for the surrounding boys and girls to start quarreling. The 4-year-old girl wasn't very sensible to begin with. Children in the countryside were usually left to their own devices. When they were young, they would be allowed to follow a large group of children to go out and play with a large group of children. Perhaps this phenomenon was less common in the countryside now because people nowadays treated children like treasures. In the past, people were poor. The poorer they were, the more children they had. A couple would usually have no less than 3 children. In fact, there were many villagers who had 7 or 8 children. This wasn't surprising at all. With more children, there was less love and care. In the early years, even the death of a child wasn't a big deal to some parents. Of course, 1999 wasn't as feudal as it used to be. In this era, the status of children was much higher in the eyes of some parents. This 4-year-old girl was young to begin with. She had followed her brothers and sisters here to join in the fun. In fact, she didn't understand what was happening at all. But after a while, this big brother suddenly said something fiercely, like a bully who had snatched a child's lollipop. Ciyi's actions scared the 4-year-old girl to tears. Wah! Big brother is so fierce, wah 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 wah. So fierce, I'm scared, I'm scared. As she spoke, the 4-year-old girl seemed to be unable to find her way home. Tears fell from her cheeks as she walked aimlessly out of the door. She even started yelling. This gave Qin Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng, who were sitting outside the door, a fright. What's going on? Big brother C is fighting with a child? Zhang Xiaofeng's eyes widened. He was clearly frightened by the scene in front of him. What's going on? My master's husband actually scared a child to tears. This is too awesome. Fighting with a child? Qin Sini could feel Ciyi's deep love for Yun Jian. She covered her mouth and laughed. Then she lifted her head from Zhang Xiaofeng's shoulder and urged Zhang Xiaofeng. Hurry up and chase the little girl back. She ran out crying. What about you? Does your head still hurt? Zhang Xiaofeng looked at Qin Sini and asked. I'm fine. Go after that little girl, Qin Sini said. Before Qin Sini could finish, Yun Jian walked out of the house. Ci followed behind her. A large group of children followed behind them. Ci was probably the only person who could talk to a child and make them cry. Yun Jian glanced at him, then chased after the crying little girl. After the little girl walked out of He Qing's house, she started crying and running at lightning speed. In the countryside, neighbors lived next to each other. Now that the sky was completely dark and the street lamps were lit up, these neighbors liked to sit at the door and chat with their neighbors before it was time to sleep after dinner. In this era, there were no smartphones or electronic products. Other than working and eating, people were used to sitting together and chatting. When the neighbors saw the little girl running back in tears, they curiously took a few more glances at her. Although the little girl's legs were short, her running speed was not slow. The little girl's house was not far away. In the blink of an eye, the little girl rushed into the house. Not long after, an old lady in her 50s or 60s walked out fiercely with the crying little girl in her arms. Granny, an older brother is bullying me. Boo, he's so fierce, so fierce. The little girl hung on the old lady's arms and cried loudly. Granny was the local dialect for calling a grandmother. Old ladies in the countryside usually favored boys over girls. Of course, when their own daughter quarreled with other people, the old lady was not stupid. She would definitely help her own daughter. Seeing Yun Jian and Ce walking over and hearing her daughters crying, the old lady glanced at Ce and scolded her without asking for the reason. Chapter 1810. This little girl's grandmother's surname was Lu. Old woman Lu didn't ask for the reason before she started scolding Yun Jian and Ce. This scolding made Yun Jian, who had originally wanted to appease the little girl, raise her eyebrows slightly. Ce acted as if she didn't hear the old woman's scolding. Seeing that Yun Jian and Ce actually ignored her scolding, old woman Lu originally only wanted to show her strength. After all, Yun Jian and Ce were from the city. Old woman Lu said that she wasn't afraid that Yun Jian and Ce were from the city, but since she said it, she was certain of one thing. Old woman Lu clearly distinguished between city dwellers and country dwellers. In old woman Lu's heart, it was her lifelong dream to be a city dweller. Even so, old woman Lu wasn't willing to show weakness in front of Yun Jian and Ce. Old woman Lu, these two children just came to our country. Just now they accidentally spoke a little too loudly and made your child cry. We're neighbors, so don't be so calculative. Give me some face, ha. Qin Sini's grandfather, He Qing, who had heard the commotion from the kitchen, walked over to ease the awkward atmosphere and said a few words to old woman Lu. Seeing that He Qing was speaking up for Yun Jian and Ce, old woman Lu glanced at Yun Jian and Ce again and didn't pursue the matter. He Qing, I'll still give you some face, but these two people from the city are too rude. They made my granddaughter cry the moment they arrived. If this happens again, it won't be so simple. As she spoke, old Madame Lu carried the little girl and turned to walk back into her house. Yun Jian and Ce didn't say anything. To be honest, it was indeed Ce who had made the little girl cry. Although old Madame Lu's tone was disgusting, she had to be reasonable. She wasn't afraid of being scolded, and it wasn't like she would lose a piece of meat. However, what made Yun Jian's mouth twitch was that just now, was he angry with a child because of her? Thinking of this, Yun Jian's heart was filled with warmth. She ran out crying on her own. Si saw that Yun Jian was looking at him. He was afraid that Yun Jian would be frightened by his fierce attitude and stay away from him, so he hurriedly explained. This was the first time that Yun Jian had seen Si like this. She lowered her head and couldn't help but snicker. How adorable. If Si heard what Yun Jian said in her heart, Si would probably press her against the wall and kiss her for 3 days and 3 nights. When old woman Lu walked into the house, the surrounding neighbors who had curiously watched as the little girl rushed into the house and called her grandmother out to support her, turned to look at Yun Jian and Si. He Qing, are these your relatives? These 2 children are so handsome. An old lady sitting at the side smiled as she looked at He Qing. No, no, no. These 2 children are my granddaughter's friends. They came to the countryside to play, He Qing explained with a smile. Actually, the people in the countryside were quite kind. The old lady looked at Yun Jian and Si, then secretly glanced in the direction that old woman Lu had left. She then said to Yun Jian and Si, don't worry about the 2 of you. You 2 don't worry about that old hag. Old hag Lu is famous in our village for being a shrew. If anyone provokes her, it's like stepping on a dog's tail. Don't be afraid, Granny can protect you 2 here. The old lady really thought that Yun Jian and Si were being bullied, so she said this. The surrounding people thought that Yun Jian and Si were ordinary students. The only difference was that they were from the city. Thus, everyone started asking Yun Jian and Si questions. In the end, when they saw Si holding Yun Jian's little hand, the old lady sitting at the front leaned over to take a look and said, are the 2 of you a young couple? It's not strange for people in the city to be in a relationship at such a young age. When we were young, if a man and a woman were to be together, they would be spat at and scolded to death. The woman wouldn't even be able to get married. Chapter 1811. It would be best if no one dared to covet her for the rest of her life because she could only be his. She belonged to him from the inside out. Who would dare snatch her away from him? Go and die. Si was drugged in this lifetime and the drug's name was Yun Jian. After Si's words, the old ladies, old men, and some middle-aged women and men around them laughed. The children in the village who were around the same age as Yun Jian and Si had gone to the town to study in middle school or high school, coming back once a week. Those who were better would be admitted to Longmen City. In this era, if someone in the village were to be admitted to Longmen City or other provinces for the Gaokao, it was something that the entire village wanted to know. Coming back to reality, the old ladies and old men had heard a lot of rumors. Usually, young couples like Yun Jian and Si would only talk about being together, but it was just for fun. How many of them would actually get married and have children? Therefore, the old ladies and old men thought that Si was joking. Young man, I hope you'll keep your word and marry her. Don't let her down in the future for following you at such a young age. The old lady who spoke just now waved the fan in her hand with a smile as she spoke to Si. Once marriage was mentioned, Yun Jian had a bad feeling. Was he going to, as expected? Si's hand slipped into his pants pocket. Cough, cough, cough. Yun Jian coughed softly and extended her hand to stop Si, but Si held her hand with his other hand. Si's other hand had slid into his pants pocket to take out a large booklet. Country R's marriage certificate was different from the red booklet in Country Z. Country R's marriage certificate was similar to a certificate of merit and came in many different styles. One could choose from a cartoon, a landscape, or a variety of other designs. Yun Jian and Si's marriage certificate was white with a clean background. At this moment, Si had already taken out the marriage certificate from Country R from his trouser pocket. Yun Jian was speechless. This feeling was a mysterious sense of déjà vu. This is Country R's marriage certificate for Xiao Jian and I. We've registered our marriage here. After Si showed off the marriage certificate in front of everyone, she carefully put it back into her pocket. The group of old ladies and old men who had been wondering if Yun Jian and Si were just playing around like other couples were dumbfounded. They're both married? He even went to Country R to register? How urgent was this? Go. You guys actually went overseas to register. This. The old lady was truly speechless. She had only heard of couples where the man treated the girl's feelings as child's play and tricked the girl into sleeping with him before abandoning her. She had never heard of or seen a man like Si who went overseas to register his marriage for Yun Jian and protected the marriage certificate like it was a treasure. I'm afraid this kind of guy is already extinct. She did not expect to see him here today. Just as the old ladies and grandpas around them gasped in shock, the child who had asked Yun Jian and Si if they would bump into each other at He Qing's house spoke up suddenly in front of everyone. What's the matter? Wow. Pretty sister and handsome brother aren't just dating, they're husband and wife. Is this the same relationship as my parents? Chapter 18:12. The child's voice was very loud and clear. It was as if he had been called out by the teacher in class. He was full of confidence and vigor that only children of this age would have. However, as soon as the child finished speaking, the old lady and old lady sitting around, including the middle-aged man and woman, He Qing and Zhang Xiaofeng who came out with him, froze. This kind of thing, it was enough for everyone to keep it to themselves. However, it was the first time something like this was said in front of so many people. Everyone around them couldn't help but blush, not to mention Yun Jian and Ce. Although Yun Jian looked extremely calm on the outside, her rosy cheeks were enough to express her current awkwardness. Ce, on the other hand, held Yun Jian's hand without blushing or skipping a beat. It was as if he was the most shameless person in the universe. He was probably the most shameless person in the world. The only reason he received this award was because of her. Cough cough cough. Little gang, your mom just came out to look for you. It's time for dinner. Your mom is calling you home for dinner. Just as the child, who didn't know what he said wrong, looked around innocently, an elderly woman coughed twice to ease the awkwardness. Then she spoke to the child. The child's name was Fu Gang. The people of Jinda village had either He or Fu as their surname. Most of the people in Jinda village had these two surnames, except for the women who married from other villages such as old woman Lu. My mom is calling me home for dinner? I have to hurry back. There's fish at home today. The child named Fu Gang patted his head and didn't care about what he said just now. He ran down a small path and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes as fast as he could. He Qing, dinner hasn't been served yet, right? Hurry hurry hurry. He's a guest. It's already so late. Aren't you going to bring the guest home for dinner? The elderly woman, who spoke to ease the awkward atmosphere, quickly turned to He Qing and tried to dissolve the awkward atmosphere completely. Hey, Cindy, my friend, come home with me for dinner. The food at home is ready. He Qing immediately realized that old Madame Yang was trying to ease the tension for him. He gave old Madame Yang a grateful look and said to Yun Jian and Ce. They had already taken out their marriage certificate and said everything that needed to be said. Even the things that shouldn't have been said were clear in their hearts. Yun Jian's small hand tightly grasped his large palm. Ce didn't say anything else that would shock the world. Then Yun Jian and Ce followed He Qing back home. He Qing quickly served the dishes. There was no one else at home. He Qing's daughter, Qin Sini's mother, He Xia, had married into Longmen City. He Qing had two sons. The eldest, He Yong, had good grades and became an official after graduation, settling down in Longmen City. The second son, He Lei, was not as well off as his eldest brother. He was currently working hard in Longmen City with his wife, so he left his child, He Dong Dong, in Jingdezhen and asked his old father, He Qing, to take care of her. Therefore, there were only He Qing and He Dong Dong in He Qing's house. All the dishes were served and placed on the square table. Yun Jian and Ce sat together, Zhang Xiaofeng and Qin Sini sat together, while He Qing and He Dong Dong sat together. Old Master He Qing's cooking was not particularly tasty, but Yun Jian enjoyed it. Halfway through the meal, He Dong Dong suddenly shook her head and looked at Yun Jian and Ce, then at Qin Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng. It's Friday tomorrow. My friends' brothers and sisters are back from school. They said they're bringing everyone to the back of the mountain to shoot birds with slingshots. There's also a fishing and prawn competition. We'll barbecue and eat together. Brothers and sisters, can you guys go with Dong Dong to play with everyone? He Dong Dong asked as she looked at Qin Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng with anticipation, then at Yun Jian and Ce. Sure, but you'll have to let the three of them play with you. I'll watch from the side, I can't do strenuous exercise. Qin Sini waved with a smile and looked at Zhang Xiaofeng before her gaze finally landed on Yun Jian. Her brain had just healed from the rupture, so she could not even jump and had to walk slowly. Jian, I'll leave it to you. Qin Sini stuck her tongue out at Yun Jian. Chapter 18:13. After dinner and a stroll, Yun Jian and Ce went to bed early. There were not many rooms in He Qing's house, but there was still room for each of them. Ce shamelessly followed Yun Jian into her room. The rooms in He Qing's house were connected one by one and the soundproofing was poor. For example, even if one farted in one's room, the room next door could hear it. In the beginning, Ce wanted to touch Yun Jian's outstretched hand, but when Yun Jian slapped his hand away, there was even a loud fart from next door that sounded like a lion's roar. Ce retracted his pig-trotter hand in silence. It was a dreamless night. Yun Jian woke up in the afternoon the next day. For some reason, she slept especially well last night and only woke up in the afternoon. When she woke up, Yun Jian could feel Siyi's hand resting on the back of her head as if it had been there for the whole night. She did not know when his hand had started to cushion the back of her head. Tilting her head slightly, she could see his bright and deep eyes. They were very good looking. Siyi woke up at 5 or 6 in the morning, but he did not wake Yun Jian up. He kept his hand on the back of her head so that she could lean against it comfortably and stared at her for 5 to 6 hours straight. It was as if he was not tired at all. Jie, brother. Wake up. Let's go catch some birds. They're already at the back of the mountain. We're the only ones left. At this moment there was the sound of someone knocking on the door, and He Dongdong's tender voice came through the door. The them naturally referred to He Dongdong's group of brats and friends, including their brothers and sisters. It was Saturday today and yesterday was Friday. Many young boys and girls who were around the same age as Yun Jian and Siyi who went to school outside came back to Jinda village from town or Longmen city. Yun Jian and Siyi had not gone far from Jinda village, so they did not run into them. The group woke up early this morning and went to the back of the mountain to compete in shooting birds with slingshots. Yun Jian and Siyi slept until noon when He Dongdong woke them up. Zhang Xiaofeng and Qin Sini had already gone to the back of the mountain. After Yun Jian and Siyi woke up and ate the breakfast He Qing had left for them, they followed He Dongdong to the back of the mountain. The back of the mountain was a place with trees and empty land. The scenery here was beautiful. Millet was scattered all around the mountain. Millet was the favorite food of birds. Since the back of the mountain was scattered with millet, the birds would automatically come over to eat it. When Yun Jian and Siyi were brought here, they saw the group of children they saw yesterday as well as their brothers and sisters. Seeing Yun Jian and Siyi, the young boys and girls around them took a few extra glances at Yun Jian and Siyi due to their outstanding looks. Wow, it's the pretty sister and handsome brother from yesterday. When Fu Gang saw Yun Jian and Siyi, he pulled a rather handsome boy who was about 1.75 meters in height over. Fu Gang pointed at Yun Jian and Siyi and told the boy, "Brother, they're the brother and sister I met yesterday." Fu Gang wanted to say something shocking, but Zhang Xiaofeng was one step ahead of everyone else. He walked over from the side and interrupted Fu Gang before he could say anything shocking again. Cough cough cough. "Hello, I'm Zhang Xiaofeng. This is my cousin Qin Sini. This is my master Yun Jian. He's my brother, see?" Zhang Xiaofeng took the initiative to extend his hand to Fu Gang's brother and introduce them to him. This also prevented Fu Gang from saying, "bump into each other." "I'm Fu Xian." Fu Gang's brother nodded politely at Zhang Xiaofeng. After a pause, Fu Xian looked at Yun Jian and the others and asked, "Are you guys here to hunt birds too?" "Yeah, that's right." Zhang Xiaofeng rubbed his head and chuckled. "You guys are city dwellers from the city? No wonder you guys look so delicate. You don't know how to shoot birds, right?" At this moment a girl walked over. She looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. Her face was a little dark, her skin was dry, and her nose was big. She wasn't pretty at all. The girl walked over and gave Qin Sini and Yun Jian a few glances. When she saw that Qin Sini and Yun Jian were pretty and their skin was fair and tender, she sniffled and said. However, she was secretly criticizing them in her heart. What's wrong with city dwellers? So what if they're pretty? Look at how delicate they are. They probably haven't even seen a slingshot before, right? What's the use of it? After she finished speaking, the girl glanced at Yun Jian and Qin Sini. Then she pointed at Fu Xian and said to Yun Jian and Qin Sini, "Brother, you guys are here." Chapter 18:14. Mingyu, have you forgotten? Not only does Big Brother Xian know how to shoot birds, but he's also shot birds with a gun before. Just as the girl finished speaking, a gorgeous and beautiful girl in a princess dress walked over. She looked at the girl who had spoken up for Yun Jian and the others. The girl who had spoken up earlier was about 17 or 18 years old. Her face was a little dark, her skin was dry, and her nose was big. She wasn't pretty and her name was He Mingyu. She was a child from the village and her grades were pretty good. She had managed to get into the town's high school. In a place like Jinda village, even getting into the town's high school was considered pretty good. Of course I know he's very good. I don't need you to tell me that. He Mingyu wasn't friendly to the pretty girl in a princess dress who had walked over to speak up for her. This pretty girl in a princess dress wasn't from Jinda village. She was from the town and her family was pretty rich. This time she had followed Fu Xian back to Jinda village. Fu Xian was pretty good looking and in the eyes of these girls he was a hot steamed bun. He Mingyu also liked Fu Xian, so she wasn't friendly to the girl in a princess dress who had spoken up for her. The girl in a princess dress who had spoken up for He Mingyu was called Gu Lioli. Gu Lioli saw that He Mingyu wasn't friendly to her, so she didn't give He Mingyu any face either. Who are you showing that face to? My big brother Xian shot birds down with a gun before. I saw it with my own eyes. Gu Lioli laughed coldly in the direction of He Mingyu and Yun Jian. Gu Lioli didn't get along with He Mingyu, but she wasn't friendly to Yun Jian and Chen Sini either. They didn't even need to talk to each other about this. Actually, Fu Xian hadn't shot birds with a real gun. He had only used a toy gun. Fu Xian was indeed a little talented. At this moment, when Fu Xian heard He Mingyu and Gu Lioli praising him, he felt a little embarrassed. You guys don't have to care about what the two of them are saying. If they want to play, let's play together. Fu Xian was a good person. He looked at Yun Jian and Ce and laughed. After saying that, he pointed to a wooden barrel not far away. There are many slingshots over there. You can take whatever you want. Don't worry. Seeing Fu Xian being so polite, Zhang Xiaofeng also replied politely. Then he walked over and took a few slingshots. Chen Sini was sitting on a big rock watching them play from afar. Brother bird. There are birds over there. Shoot it down with your slingshot. At this moment He Dong suddenly noticed a bird pecking at the ground. He whispered to Zhang Xiaofeng. Okay. Zhang Xiaofeng responded. Just as he was about to shoot the bird with his slingshot, He Mingyu beat him to it. He Mingyu said as she walked over with large strides. She pressed a stone on the slingshot in her hand and shot the bird. I saw this bird first. It's mine. A stone bounced over. Not only did it fail to capture the bird, but it also scared it away. He Mingyu did not think it was inappropriate. When she turned around and saw Yun Jian looking at her nonchalantly, she was annoyed and suddenly looked up to tell Yun Jian smugly, "What the hell? What are you looking at? Haven't you seen people using slingshots and small stones to shoot birds? I can tell you're from the city. You really don't know anything." He Mingyu then swung the slingshot in her hand, pretending to be very powerful as she flaunted to Yun Jian and Ce, who was standing next to Yun Jian. She spoke as if she were a Superman in the universe. There's nothing to say about my brother Xian's strength. He's not someone your delicate city dwellers can compare to. Chapter 18:15. He Mingyu spoke as if she was a sharpshooter who never missed a single shot. She was extremely cocky. That's true. Mingyu is the best girl in Jinda village. Fu Xian's hit rate is 5 times out of 10, while Mingyu's hit rate is 1 time out of 10. A boy who was about the same age as He Mingyu and Fu Xian walked over and said honestly. He even rubbed his head and smiled a little embarrassedly. What the boy said was the truth. The group of people around them were all children from the countryside, except for Gu Lioli, who was from a wealthy family in town. Children from the countryside were still wild and could run like He Mingyu. She was tan because she was exposed to the sun every day. Children from the countryside were wild, and the birds in the countryside were wild as well. Over the years, people had gained experience in catching birds. And the more birds were caught, the more experienced they became when it came to stealing millet and running away. Whether it was Fu Xian or He Mingyu, they hadn't spent all their time studying how to catch birds since they were young. To have such a hit rate in addition to their age, they were already the best among the younger generation. I don't need you to tell me that I'm also the best among the girls. And she was a perfect match for Fu Xian. He Mingyu glared at Gu Lioli, then turned her arrogant head towards Yun Jian. She seemed to be saying, "How is it? Do you know how good I am now?" The corners of Zhang Xiaofeng's lips twitched. He was so disgusted by He Mingyu's ugly mouth that he almost vomited. Dong, go play with your little friends." Zhang Xiaofeng handed the slingshot to He Dong, then turned to look at Yun Jian. "Master, we haven't trained today. Why don't we run 10 laps around this mountain? There's a foul smell here. I can't F***king stand it." Zhang Xiaofeng was quite vicious. Although he didn't mention any names, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that he was talking about He Mingyu. He Mingyu's face instantly darkened. He Mingyu suddenly rolled her eyes. She accidentally heard Zhang Xiaofeng call Yun Jian master, so she opened her mouth and spat at Yun Jian. "Haha, what master? You're actually taking in disciples. Did he think that he was some kind of expert? Learning how to take in disciples? Ah, I'm dying of laughter. A woman from the city like you, what skills do you have to teach your disciple? I advise you to go home, take a piss and look at yourself." When He Mingyu started speaking, Ce pulled Yun Jian into his arms and retreated 5 meters away from He Mingyu, so that He Mingyu's spit didn't hit Yun Jian and Ce. When He Mingyu spoke up to this point, Ce's face turned cold and he frowned. He directly interrupted He Mingyu, Don't you dare say anything bad about my woman again. Siyi's words carried absolute pressure. He Mingyu didn't know why, but he actually shrank back in fear and didn't dare to speak. Go run 20 laps around the mountain. After that, I'll teach you how to use the butterfly knife. Yun Jian glanced at Zhang Xiaofeng and said. After learning from Yun Jian for so long, Zhang Xiaofeng really wanted to learn how to use the butterfly knife nimbly from Yun Jian. When he heard Yun Jian's words, Zhang Xiaofeng widened his eyes and asked Yun Jian, Master, really? I'll run right now. After saying that, he disappeared without a trace. Tisk, he's pretty good at acting. He Mingyu didn't dare to speak in front of Ce, but when he saw Yun Jian's expression, he couldn't help but mutter. Zhang Xiaofeng's stamina was getting better and better. After an hour, he finished running 20 laps around the mountain. During this hour, Yun Jian couldn't help but sneer as she watched He Mingyu hit the birdie once out of 10 times. Master, I'm done running. Zhang Xiaofeng panted heavily and wiped away his sweat. He didn't collapse to the ground like ordinary people after running for so long. He Mingyu watched as Yun Jian took out the butterfly knife from his pants pocket and laughed coldly. You're just deliberately mystifying things. Gu Lioli also looked over and chuckled softly. On the other side, Yun Jian took out the butterfly knife and swung it twice, then said to Zhang Xiaofeng, the butterfly knife is nimble. If you want to throw it, you have to fully grasp its structure and how to use it. Just as she said this, Yun Jian's eyes suddenly narrowed. The people around them, including He Mingyu, Gu Lioli, and Fu Xian, were all slightly startled. They saw Yun Jian suddenly throw the butterfly knife. Chapter 1816. The butterfly knife was called a butterfly knife because its blade was very similar to a butterfly. A butterfly had a body and 2 wings. When the wings were folded, they could wrap around its body. The butterfly knife was the same. The blade of the butterfly knife was the body of the butterfly. If a normal knife was to be stored, it would be stored in the scabbard. However, the butterfly knife's scabbard wasn't a single scabbard. It had 2 scabbards, one on the left and one on the right. When the 2 scabbards were folded together, the blade of the butterfly knife could be stored. The 2 scabbards were like the wings of the butterfly, which could be folded together at will. In other words, the difference between a normal knife and a butterfly knife was that the moment the blade of the butterfly knife was cut, the 2 scabbards could be combined together to form a normal knife. One could also grab a scabbard and throw it out to hold the blade of the other knife. To put it simply, the butterfly knife was a tool that could be transformed into a normal knife or a non-normal knife. If a person who didn't know how to use a butterfly knife grabbed a scabbard and threw the butterfly knife away, it was very likely that they would accidentally injure themselves. Therefore, when many people first learned the butterfly knife, they would practice for a long time with a non-edged knife. When Yun Jian nimbly played with the butterfly knife in her hand, He Mingyu, Gu Lioli, and the others in the distance were already dumbfounded. The group of children around them had never seen such a knife. Even if they had never seen a butterfly knife that could be assembled into a normal knife by dropping a blade in 2 scabbards. Moreover, they had never seen anyone play with the butterfly knife so smoothly. Wow. Pretty Big Sister is not only pretty but also amazing. Yeah. Pretty Big Sister is amazing. Pretty Big Sister is so amazing and beautiful. When I grow up, I also want to marry a pretty big sister like her. The large group of children were all in their childhood stages. They were innocent and said whatever came to their minds. Seeing that Yun Jian could play with a knife so nimbly, the group of children was dumbfounded. Even Fu Xen looked at Yun Jian with a somewhat crazed gaze. Su Mingyu and Gu Lioli, who were watching from afar, clenched their fists tightly. They were so angry that they wished they could go over and give Yun Jian a beating. But at that moment, Yun Jian suddenly sheathed her knife. She held the 2 scabbards together, making the butterfly knife look like an ordinary knife. With the blade below, she held the scabbards that formed the handle. Her eyes flashed as she narrowed them. G. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. Creak creak creak. Not far away, because no one went to disturb them, a large flock of birds had already landed on the ground to look for food. They even let out satisfied cries after eating the millet. It was also at this moment that He Mingyu, Gu Lioli, Fu Xian, and all the children saw a horrifying scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. The butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand suddenly flew towards the flock of birds. Her knife was so fast that no one could see it clearly with their naked eyes. The saber flew out from his hand. With lightning speed, it flew towards the flock of birds that had sensed danger and were fluttering in the air in an attempt to escape. The butterfly knife borrowed momentum and didn't merge. The blade and the 2 scabbards formed an ordinary dagger, and it flew through the flock of birds that were trying to escape. The short blade pierced through the abdomens of 3 birds that were trying to escape, nailing the 3 birds to the blade. Her knife skills were accurate. Yun Jian's butterfly knife didn't just hit the birds' abdomens. This time, it didn't pierce through just one bird's abdomen. Instead, like skewering mutton, it nailed 3 birds to the blade of the butterfly knife. This scene caused an uproar. Silence. Dead silence. Chapter 1817. The knife pierced through the abdomen of 3 birds in a row. Yun Jian's knife skills were so accurate that it frightened and horrified everyone present. He Mingyu and Gu Lioli were already scared beyond recognition by Yun Jian's move. They couldn't say a word for a long time and even their minds were blank. The group of friends around them were the same. In the end, it was Fu Xian who broke the silence. He looked at Yun Jian in amazement and said, "So, amazing." They originally thought that the girls from the city were all delicate and didn't know how to do this or that. But to be honest, Yun Jian's actions completely overturned everyone's understanding. "My master. Of course she's amazing. You guys haven't seen her at her best. That simply can't be described with words." Zhang Xiaofeng glared back at the people who had mocked Yun Jian, then said smugly, "Follow the knife with your eyes. When you use the knife, you have to use your voice to listen for the position of the target you want to hunt. You're a beginner now, so you have to familiarize yourself with the butterfly knife first. When you're so familiar with it that you can use it nimbly with your eyes closed, you'll be able to do it even without using your eyes." Just as Zhang Xiaofeng finished speaking, Yun Jian's voice was immediately heard. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaofeng very seriously committed Yun Jian's words to memory. Perhaps it was because Zhang Xiaofeng and Qin Sini treated Yun Jian well, but Ce interrupted Zhang Xiaofeng and said, "If you need anything you can ask me." There were only a few people in the world who could receive such words from Ce. Zhang Xiaofeng naturally knew that this grandmaster of his was a very mysterious person. For him to say such words, it was clear that he treated him well. Zhang Xiaofeng was about to call him Big Brother Ce, but he unconsciously called him by the wrong name. Zhang Xiaofeng very emotionally shouted to Ce, "Thank you, Grandmaster." After saying this, Zhang Xiaofeng suddenly realized that he had called him by the wrong name. *CK. He was an idiot, he called out the wrong name. Didn't Grandmaster call Ce old? Just as Zhang Xiaofeng was about to correct himself, he saw Ce who had his arm around Yun Jian curl his lips into a faint smile. His nonchalant face that looked like nothing in the world could catch his eye broke into a faint smile. Was he seeing things? Ce actually liked the way he addressed her? Zhang Xiaofeng felt that he had to address her a lot more. Oh, which family did this child come from? He actually managed to hit 3 birds with a single blade. Our Jinda village's children are getting better at catching birds. He's so different from these kids from the city. At this moment, the voice of the old woman Lu, the grandmother of the little girl who had run home crying yesterday, could be heard. Not far away, old lady Lu was carrying her granddaughter and walking over while talking to him. Old woman Lu wanted her granddaughter to play with everyone. She had just arrived at the back of the mountain when she didn't expect to see the 3 birds hit by the blade. Seeing that Yun Jian and the others were here, she wanted to boast about the prowess of her Jinda village's people. "Granny, she was the one who hit these 3 birds with a single blade." Just as old woman Lu was feeling smug, Fu Xian's voice suddenly rang out. He pointed at Yun Jian who was not far away. Hearing this, old woman Lu's expression immediately froze. What? She was the one who had thrown out the dagger of the 3 little birds. Wasn't she just a useless little girl from the city? How could she have such an ability? Just as old woman Lu was holding her granddaughter in shock, Yun Jian and Ce suddenly felt that something was amiss around them. In the next second, she exchanged glances with Ce and walked towards the back of the mountain. "Hey, where are you guys going?" Seeing this, Fu Xian, He Mingyu, Gu Lioli and the others were all stunned. Then they followed Yun Jian and Ce's footsteps. Because Qin Sini was there, Zhang Xiaofeng was suspicious and didn't follow. After walking for about 5 minutes towards the back of the mountain, Yun Jian suddenly gestured to the group of people behind her. He Mingyu originally wanted to curse at Yun Jian. "What are you trying to do now?" But for some reason, when Yun Jian gestured, she didn't immediately react and was about to speak. Just as He Mingyu reacted and was about to speak, the group of people who walked over heard a few whispers. "I heard that there's a treasure buried in the back of the mountain in Jinda village. Is this true or not?" "It's definitely true. I'm guessing it's near this mountain. I heard that even the residents of Jinda village don't know about this. Recently, many outsiders have come to Jinda village. Isn't it because they want to snatch this treasure? Now, the back of the mountain is filled with people from all walks of life. We could meet this group of people at any time. Chapter 18:18. Listening to their conversation, Yun Jian and Si Yi's eyes glinted as they stood in the dark. He Mingyu, Fu Xin, and Gu Liuli covered their mouths tightly and widened their eyes. They forced themselves not to make a sound as they watched the scene unfold before them. Thankfully, the children who were still in primary school didn't follow them. Old woman Lu didn't follow them either, so they didn't make a sound. The reason why he Mingyu and the others were frightened was because the two men standing in front of them were holding two pistols in their hands. Listening to the conversation between the two of them, it was clear that the guns in their hands were definitely real. Just as they finished their conversation, a tall and sturdy figure suddenly darted out from the bushes. The two men were tall and thin. With their backs facing Yun Jian, Si Yi, and the rest, one of them shouted at the tall and sturdy figure, "Lu Hua, how is it? Is boss here?" "No, boss said the information was wrong. There's no treasure in this godforsaken place behind Jinda village. Let's hurry up and leave. It's all AF * King Bluff." The man named Lu Hua waved at the two tall and thin men. His movements were very light and quiet, but Yun Jian, Si Yi, and the rest who were hiding in the dark heard him clearly. Hearing that the information was wrong, the two tall and thin men cursed in a low voice and left. It was as if the scene before them was a joke. It was only after the three men were far away that Yun Jian and her friends started to head back. Are the guns in their hands real guns?" He Mingyu trembled for a while before he managed to ask the question he wanted to ask. When they saw Yun Jian and Si Yi walking towards them, he Mingyu and the rest followed them without a second thought. He Mingyu followed them with the intention of figuring out what Yun Jian was up to. However, on the way back, she was trembling all over and couldn't stop asking in a trembling voice, "If you want to know whether it's real or not, you can just chase after them and ask them." Yun Jian smiled coldly. If Yun Jian had said this before, he Mingyu would probably have retorted. However, he Mingyu was too afraid to say a word now. When they returned to the back of the mountain where they hunted birds, although he Mingyu and the rest were afraid, they didn't mention a word about what had just happened. Fortunately, those who went were around Yun Jian's age. Because they had seen an extremely terrifying scene, no one mentioned what had just happened. When they returned to the back of the mountain, they didn't have the mood to continue hunting birds with their slingshots. They all found an excuse to go home. When it was past 6 in the evening, the sun was about to set and the afterglow of the sky was slowly blooming. Dinner had yet to be served. He Qing did not make dinner in time either. After he came back from outside, he hurriedly called Yun Jian, Si Yi, Qin Sini, and Zhang Xiaofeng into the house. "Sini, I've called. Your family's car will be here to take you back to Longmen City later," He Qing said, looking flustered. "Go home? Grandpa, we've just arrived yesterday. Why do we have to go back?" Qin Sini was shocked and confused. He Qing kept quiet for 2 seconds before he suddenly glanced at Yun Jian and Si Yi. Finally, as if he had made a decision, he walked to the door and looked around. Seeing that there was no one there, he closed the door and turned to speak to everyone sternly. He looked at Yun Jian and Si Yi first. "Sini has told me before that one of you is her best friend and the other is her best friend's man. It's believable. I won't keep this a secret from all of you." As he spoke, He Qing looked at the group and sighed. "A lot of foreigners have come to Jinda village recently. I don't know if you guys know that there's a lot of foreigners coming to the back of the mountain recently, saying that they're here to look for treasure." Yun Jian's deep eyes narrowed when she heard that. He Qing's solemn voice continued, "They've been looking for treasure in the back of the mountain but to no avail. Some of them have gone back while some are still unwilling to give up. I heard that a group of people have come recently. They're world-class bigwigs and they even have guns with them. I heard from someone at the village entrance just now that they won't leave until they get their hands on the treasure. They're even going from house to house to search for the treasure they want." As he spoke, He Qing hurried to his bed and bent under it to lift up a piece of floorboard under the bed to take out an ancient box. He Qing went over and shoved the box into Qin Sini's arms before he told Qin Sini and the rest anxiously, "Brother, you're here." Chapter 18:19. Grandpa. Then what are you going to do? Qin Sini had never heard of this before, let alone the fact that her family had an ancestral treasure. She was completely stunned and asked after a moment of silence. He Qing's words made Yun Jian blink as well. The fact that He Qing could say this in front of her and Si Yi was proof that he trusted her and Si Yi a lot. Zhang Xiaofeng was equally stunned by He Qing's words. Ce, who was beside them, acted like he did not hear He Qing at all. As the leader of an Hun group, what treasure could Ce not have? To Ce, those rare treasures were not as precious as his Xiao Jian. His treasure was Xiao Jian. Other than that, no one or anything could replace it. Dong Dong and I will stay here. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Those people don't even know that the treasure is in our house. Anyway, Cinny, take it and leave quickly. Your family's car will drive to the village entrance to pick you up later. He Qing said solemnly. This family heirloom had been with the He family for a long time and had been passed down for many generations. About a year or two ago, someone suddenly spread the news that there was a treasure in the mountain behind Jinda village. The villagers did not know about it, but it was a hot topic outside. There were many people who came to the mountain behind Jinda village to search for the treasure, but to no avail. Basically, they would leave when they did not find the treasure after searching the mountain behind Jinda village. However, the group of people who came these 2 days was said to be sent by an international bigwig. All of them were armed with guns. It was obvious that they were gangsters. When He Qing was in the village just now, he heard them say that they would not leave until they found the treasure. He Qing panicked. He quickly called Qin Cinny back, planning to have her leave with the treasure. As they spoke, a car honked at the door. He Qing got Qin Cinny to hold the antique box tightly and told everyone to pack up and leave. The car's here. Cinny, go back to Longmen City quickly and pass this box to your mom. Don't let your eldest and second uncles know about it. He Qing reminded Qin Cinny. He Qing knew very well that his eldest and second sons were greedy. If they knew that there was a treasure in their house, they would sell it for money immediately. As he spoke, He Qing led Qin Cinny, Yun Jian and the others out of the door. However, as soon as he walked out of his house, He Qing saw a car parked not far away. Beside the car stood a group of ferocious-looking people. This group of fiendish people had guns in their hands. And the leader of this group of fierce-looking people was the man with a tattoo on his chest standing at the very front. Beside him was someone He Qing was familiar with. Liang, why are you here? He Qing looked at the leader of the group of people in surprise. Beside him stood a person who was about the same age as him and looked very much like him. The person called Liang was He Qing's younger brother, He Liang. Brother, what's this thing in your granddaughter's arms? Where are they going? He Liang's eyes shone when he saw what Qin Cinny was holding. He Liang, do you know what you're saying? The menacing men around them were obviously the world-class bigwigs. He Qing's eyes widened in shock when he heard He Liang's words. You don't have to call me by my full name, brother. I can hear you. He Liang said to He Qing in a sarcastic tone. After saying this, He Liang, who had wanted to put on an act just now, immediately revealed his true colors. Ha, brother. You're so nice to me. Our father was so nice to you when he passed away. He even passed on such a precious thing to you. If it wasn't for my neighbor, Old Wang, who overheard the conversation between you and our father, I wouldn't even know that our family had passed on such a treasure. Chapter 1820. He Qing's old father had already passed away. Before he passed away, he gave the family heirloom to He Qing and told He Qing to pass it on. When it came to family heirlooms, some people would think about how to sell it for money. Others would want to pass it on even if they starved to death. Of course, there were very few people who could do the latter. He Qing was one of them. He Qing's old father had long seen through his other son, He Liang's character. That was why He Qing's old father gave the family heirloom to He Qing. At this moment, after hearing He Liang's words, He Qing suddenly thought of something. His finger trembled as he pointed at the group of ferocious-looking people and said loudly, Liang, could it be that these people, were you the one who called them here? His own younger brother had betrayed him. He Qing didn't know how to describe this feeling. My brother, don't look as if you were the one who suffered a great loss. When that old man gave you the family heirloom, did he remember that I was his son too? I don't mind telling you. I was also the one who spread the news about the family heirloom in Jinda village. He Liang's face made Qin Cinny and Zhang Xiaofeng feel nauseous. There was a glint in Yun Jian's eyes. Si Yi's arm around her waist never loosened. He Liang's words made He Qing's expression change. He Qing couldn't believe that his younger brother would betray him like this. He clutched his heart and was so angry that he almost vomited blood. What are you guys waiting for? Hurry up and snatch the treasure. It's in that girl's arms. He Liang suddenly said to the leader standing next to him as he pointed at Qin Cinny. Next to He Qing's house was the sports field of Jinda village. Therefore, all the villagers were attracted by the commotion and came to see what was going on. Whether it was the old woman Lu Himingyu whom Yun Jian and the others met in the back of the mountain, Gulioli or Fu Xian's group, they all heard the commotion and came over. When they saw the leader standing there with a group of fierce-looking people, and each of them holding a shiny pistol in their hands, these ignorant people in the village all turned pale with fright. "How dare you order me around?" The leader glanced at He Liang and waved his hand, ordering his men to arrest He Liang. "What are you doing? Didn't you say that you would share half of the treasure with me?" He Liang was still in shock when he was pinned down. He only calmed down when the leader's subordinate pointed the gun at his head. "My name is Henry, I'm the younger brother of D Country's arms tycoon Henry Livy. Old man, if you know what's good for you, you'd better hand it over or else, hee," the leader said as he twirled the pistol in his hand. The scene of He Liang betraying He Qing and Henriquez betraying He Liang made everyone tremble in fear, not daring to utter a single word. Looking at the shiny pistols, He Qing clenched his fist. He didn't expect that in the end, the one who ruined his family's heirloom was his own brother. "Old man, give it to me. Otherwise I'll kill you." Henriquez saw that He Qing didn't take out the treasure, so he grabbed the gun and pointed it at He Qing's head. "I won't give it to you." Just when everyone thought that He Qing would not be able to protect his family's heirloom, a beautiful female voice rang out. Yun Jian quietly took the antique box from Qin Sini and held it in her hand. She crossed her arms and looked at Henriquez in front of everyone as she said those words. "What did you say? Give it to me." Henriquez heard Yun Jian's words and angrily pointed the gun at Yun Jian as he roared. The gun was actually pointed at Yun Jian's head. She just provoked Henriquez, who had a gun in his hand. Was she looking for death? The surrounding residents of Jinda village, including Fu Xian, He Mingyu and the others, all took a deep breath. They were so scared that their faces turned extremely pale. Old woman Lu was so scared that her legs were paralyzed. Just when Henriquez was overbearing, a gunshot sounded. Without giving anyone a chance to react, this shot was aimed at Henriquez's wrist that was pointing the gun at Yun Jian's head. The bullet flew into Henriquez's wrist at a speed that he couldn't react to at all. The nerves in Henriquez's wrist were destroyed on the spot. The gun in his hand that was pointing at Yun Jian's head fell to the ground unconsciously. No one could see who fired the gun. When everyone looked in the direction of the frightening bullet, they saw a shiny silver gun appear in Si Yi's right hand while holding Yun Jian's waist. In terms of shooting skills, Si Yi was invincible in this world. With a dark expression, Si Yi looked at Henriquez without a change in his expression. After he shot Henriquez's wrist in a swift motion that no one knew when he had taken out his gun and shot, a voice so cold that it shocked everyone rang. It was directed at Henriquez. Chapter 1821. The surrounding people were shocked by Si Yi's actions. What was even more frightening was that Si Yi also had a gun. And all of Henry's subordinates also had guns. Even if everyone knew that Si Yi had a gun, they would never have thought that Si Yi would do such a thing. Just because Henry pointed his gun at Yun Jian, Si Yi fired at him. Not to mention Si Yi's marksmanship, just his actions alone were enough to show that he was disregarding his own life just to protect Yun Jian. There were many girls present and Si Yi was so handsome. When these girls saw this scene, they couldn't help but be tempted. Nowadays, how many boys would really disregard their own lives for the sake of the girl they liked? Just as everyone was thinking this, Henry, who had one of his wrists crippled, held his hand and roared, "You actually dared to shoot at me. Kill him. Kill them for me. After taking the treasures, don't leave a single one alive." Henry's tone was very agitated. It was the kind of furious roar that came from enduring the pain in his wrist. So what if Si Yi had a gun? He was only one person after all. The Jinda village residents standing in the distance were so frightened that their legs went soft. Henry had obviously suffered all kinds of knife and gun wounds in the past. How could he be ordinary in the black market? Although Henry was in great pain from Si Yi's attack, he could still endure it. Just as he growled, Henrius held his injured wrist. His eyes darted around, not looking at Yun Jian closely just now. Now that he was looking at her delicate and beautiful face, he could see that she was delicate and pretty. She was more perfect than any girl he had ever had. Henrius' eyes suddenly narrowed, and his lower body swelled. Perhaps because Si Yi dared to shoot at him and injure him, Henry wanted to take revenge. He pointed at Yun Jian and said to his subordinates, "Don't kill this girl. Kill everyone else. How dare you injure me? I'll King rape your woman in front of the whole village." The person Henry wanted to take revenge on was naturally Si Yi, who had hurt him. He was the younger brother of the D country's military tycoon Henry Liwei. How could a brat like him provoke him? Originally, Si didn't plan to make a move, but after hearing Henriquez's words, Si's eyes flashed with a strong killing intent. Even he himself could not bear to touch his Xiao Jian. You can prepare to die now. Si let go of Yun Jian's waist and took 2 steps towards Henry. Yun Jian blinked. What did you say? Henry glared at Si. However, the moment Henriquez spoke, Si's tall figure appeared in front of Henriquez like a phantom. He directly passed by Henriquez's subordinates who were protecting him, his speed as fast as a bolt of lightning. Raising his hand, the gun in his hand was pressed against Henriquez's temple before his men could even react. Without any hesitation, the bullet went straight into Henriquez's temple with a bang. The residents of Jinda village had never seen such a scene. At the same time, the residents of Jinda village retreated 3 feet in fright, their faces drained of color. He killed someone? The second before Henriquez closed his eyes and stopped breathing, his eyes widened in disbelief as he fell to the ground. His subordinates were all highly trained assassins. These assassins could even buy him time to escape the pursuit of a top 10 international secret agent or assassin ranking. However, Si just now was like a phantom appearing in front of him in seconds and killing him directly. Such skill. Other than slaying God who ranked first in the international secret agent ranking, no other male in the world could do this. Could he be from an Hun group? However, before Henriquez could think further, his body had already fallen to the ground. The surrounding residents, including Fu Xan, He Mingyu, and the rest, had a drastic change of expression as they retreated to the corner of the wall in fear. Even Henry's men were stunned by Si's simple yet fast speed that could not be captured by the naked eye. At this moment, Si had put away the gun in his hand. With both hands in his trouser pockets, he kicked Henriquez's body more than 10 meters away, causing Henriquez's body to fall onto Henriquez's most prized subordinate. In front of everyone, Si's mellow voice that was so cold that it was frightening rang. He spoke openly about his identity to Henry's subordinates. Chapter 1822. An Hun group. Henry's men were not as smart as Henry. Once they heard what Si said, they assumed that Si was from an Hun group. In the underworld, anyone who was related to an Hun group was terrifying. Therefore, these subordinates who wanted to avenge Henriquez were all frightened. In less than 3 minutes, they left the scene with Henry's body. Everything seemed to have returned to how it was before. The only thing left was the scene that reeked of gunpowder. There was also He Qing's younger brother, He Liang's battered body. Everyone stared at Ce as if they had seen a ghost. The gazes from the people of Jinda village could no longer be described as horrifying. Murder. He actually killed someone. It was obvious that the people around them did not know about an Hun group. No one here knew the meaning of an Hun group. It's good that he's dead. That guy just now has killed a lot of people. He's an outlaw from Germany coming to Country Z to provoke us. Does he really think that there's no one in Country Z? He deserves it. At this time, an old man knocked on the ground with his walking stick and said loudly, "That's right. What's the big deal about him, a German coming to Country Z to show off?" That's right. The older generation had a deeper sense of patriotism, so when the old man finished speaking, the others around him agreed. Their voices were loud and clear. In the end, it became the group of old men shouting at Ce, "Well done, young man. We support you." In the end, the matter was left unsettled. The people of Jinda village were almost harmed by Henry, who came to hunt for treasure because of He Liang. To prevent people from coming here to hunt for treasure, the first thing the village chief did was to deny He Liang's rumor that there was treasure in the mountain behind Jinda village. He Liang was left to He Qing to deal with. However, to prevent He Liang from coveting his family's heirloom, He Qing had Chen Sini bring it back to Longmen City quickly and pass it to Chen Sini's mother, He Xia. At this moment, Yun Jian and Ce had also ended their short stay in the countryside and returned home. He had already given the eternal necklace, which he had captured from the international criminals, to Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru was already wearing it. On the 3rd day of their return to Longmen City, Adam, who had just returned from a trip with Lan Su, booked a 5-star hotel in Longmen City and invited everyone inside, saying that he had something important to announce. Adam even called Shuaying and Lin Wei, who were in an Hun organization, over. It was so lively that it was as if it was a joyous occasion. At the same time, Yun Jian was sitting at a dining table in this 5-star hotel, playing the mobile version of Snake that Qing Yu had introduced to her. The prototype of the Snake game was born in 1976. It first appeared on an arcade machine called Blockade. It was a 2-player game. Later it was modified into a mobile version of Snake. However, mobile phones in this era could not touch the screen, so Yunjian played with the keyboard on her phone. "How is it, Sister Jian? Is it fun?" Qingyu asked Yunjian after failing the challenge since Siyi was not around. "It's SOSO. Yunjian's lips curled into a smile. "Wow, Sister Jian, this is your first time playing? How is the snake not dead even when it's so long?" Qingyu could not help exclaiming at Yunjian's proficiency in the game. Just as she said that, she saw Siyi walking over from not far away. Qingyu made way for him and Siyi wrapped his arm around Yunjian. His handsome face went to Yunjian's side and asked softly, "Xiao Jian, what are you playing?" Yunjian pressed her lips together as Siyi's words made her tingle. "Sister Jian's playing Gluttonous Snake." Qingyu interjected out of the blue and ran off with a grin. Yunjian felt a little numb from Siyi's breath beside her ear. Without looking up, she asked Siyi, "Do you want to play?" "Sure." Siyi did not hesitate at all. He knew that Xiao Jian was just asking, but his hand subconsciously took the phone from her. The moment he took the phone, his slender fingers deliberately held her small hand and caressed it for a full 3 minutes. Yunjian was speechless. Was he reaching out to take the phone or to caress her hand? Just as Siyi refused to let go of Yunjian's soft hand, Xiao Yunju and the other two who were chasing each other around them stopped abruptly. Chapter 1823. At this moment, Siyi's bony hand was holding onto Yunjian's delicate hand, refusing to let go. Cough cough cough. Qingyu blushed when she heard what Xiao Yunju said. She quickly walked over to grab Xiao Yunju and dragged the three of them to the side. Fortunately, they were all on the same side. Qingyu, Gunyinji, and Luo Berry were all there, so they were not surprised by this. Yunjian had Ce, Si Luo had Snow Eagle, Qingyu had Gujunjian, Qingyu had Yunyi, and Lan Su had Adam. Even Xiao Yunju was holding hands with Duan Li, looking extremely happy. Gunyinji, who was sitting alone in the corner, watched the scene before her. She pouted and waved at Luo Berry. "Little Strawberry, come here. Come here quickly." Luo Berry had been secretly eating pastries at the table, but when she heard Gunyinji calling for her, she took 3 pieces of pastries from the table and walked over to Gunyinji. Luo Berry did not know that Mo Sen, who was standing nearby in a suit, looked like he was looking at his younger brother Adam. However, he was actually sizing up Luo Berry from the corner of his eyes. Luo Berry ran towards Gunyinji. Gunyinji reached out and put her arm around her shoulder. She said to Luo Berry, "Little Strawberry, you're the best. They're all in pairs. Fortunately you're here. Otherwise I would be alone." "How awkward would that be?" Gunyinji laughed out loud like a man and took 2 wine glasses. She shoved one of them into Luo Berry's arms and said to her, "Come come. Come come come. To celebrate our friendship, cheers." Gunyinji was from Yulong mainland, so she had a forthright aura. Luo Berry, on the other hand, was more delicate. She held the glass of wine and was stunned. Gunyinji had been taking care of her when she was at Qingyu's house, like a big sister. Luo Berry grinned at Gunyinji as she thought about it. She took the glass of wine and clinked it with Gunyinji's. Just as she was about to put the glass into her mouth, a very beautiful hand reached out and blocked Luo Berry's hand that was about to put the wine glass into her mouth. "She can't drink. I'll drink for her." A male voice that Luo Mei had been longing for sounded. The voice was very pleasant to the ears, and there was a hint of a cool breeze in his breath, making people feel refreshed. Ma Sen, who had been watching Adam the entire time and secretly glanced at Luo Berry from the corner of his eyes, couldn't help himself when he saw that Luo Berry was going to drink. He walked over and snatched the wine cup from Luo Berry's hand, downing all the wine in one gulp. Luo Berry was shocked by Mo Sen, who suddenly walked over. She was stunned and didn't react for a long time. "You don't have to drink for me, I can drink?" Just as Lockberry was about to explain, Mo Sen interrupted. "Drinking is bad for a girl's body. Don't drink in the future." After saying that, Mo Sen took away the wine glass in Rockberry's hand. Luo Berry was stunned. Gunyinji, who was beside her, covered her mouth and snickered secretly behind Luo Berry's back. She thought to herself, "My little Strawberry, this is all I can do for you." Outsiders did not know that she, Gunyinji, had a very proud title in Yulong mainland, matchmaker. At this moment, Adam suddenly wrapped his arm around Lan Su's waist in front of everyone and carefully walked over. From the looks of it, he seemed to be afraid that Lan Su would fall. Adam even announced the good news of his treat when he walked in front of everyone. He was going to be a father. That's right, Lan Su was pregnant. Out of the 3 leaders of Anhun, Shuiying had the biggest reaction. He walked over to knock Adam's head and shouted, "You're going to be a father before me. I can't accept this." Emosen smirked and said to Adam, "We can discuss the wedding now. Mom and Dad are gone. I'm your brother. I'll definitely help you guys make this wedding a grand one." Lin Wei acted like he did not hear anything when he heard that. He did not feel anything. Chapter 1824. Adam's announcement was indeed a pleasant surprise. Once the news was announced, everyone who was present was pleasantly surprised. Everyone's reactions differed greatly as well. Looking at his three brothers' reactions, Xueying was the most agitated. Adam even glanced at Xueying smugly and said with a grin, "I can't compare to you in other aspects, but you can't beat me in this lifetime when it comes to being a father earlier than you." Among the four leaders of an Hun group, the most boisterous were Adam and Xueying. Lin Wei was the most composed, followed by Mo Sr. "What's the use of being a father earlier? It's amazing to have more children. It's still too early for you to compare yourself to me." Xueying chuckled at Adam, unwilling to admit defeat. "Then why don't we compete to see who has more children in the future? Whoever loses will go to Amazon for a year." Adam countered. "Come on. Do you think I'm scared of you?" Xueying replied. "Young master, we've made this bet in front of you. You have to remember it in the future. No one is allowed to go back on their word." Adam turned to Ce and said confidently. Ce, whose hand was still on Yunjian's waist, smirked and glanced at Adam and Xueying sharply. "I'll send both of you to Amazon tomorrow for a year to practice. How about that?" Adam and Xueying declined quickly at Ce's words. "Please don't, young master. You can't do that." Yunjian had actually known about Lan Su's pregnancy since a long time ago. Lan Su could not keep it a secret and had told her long ago. Yunjian wore a small smile and pressed her lips together lightly. She did not know that Ce, who was sitting beside her, was already tempted when he heard that Adam and Lan Su were pregnant earlier than her and Xiao Jian. Everyone enjoyed the meal and nothing unpleasant happened. It could be said to be a very peaceful dinner. Halfway through, Lan Su suddenly called Yunjian outside and gave Yunjian an envelope. He said to Yunjian with some shame, "Yunjian, the address of the martial arts family is in this letter. I may not be able to accompany you to collect the letter. I just had a baby and the doctor said that the first 3 months of pregnancy is not stable, so I know. Give birth to the child peacefully. Whether it's the matters of the Yulong mainland or the matters here, you don't have to care about them until the child is born." Yunjian smiled and said to Lan Su. She, Lan Su, was originally the sorcerer god's #1 protector. Whether or not she could get married was up to the sorcerer god. Lan Su was very touched by Yunjian's words. Just as Yunjian finished her touching words, Yunjian opened her mouth again. "But after you give birth, you have to continue to work hard for me. At the very least, you have to earn a few billion back for me." This sentence sounded like she was using Lan Su, but Lan Su knew that Yunjian meant that she, Yunjian, would not give up on her even if she rested for a year. Lan Su was even more touched now. "Alright, you can go in first," Yunjian said to Lan Su. Lan Su heard this and returned to the dining table. Yunjian held the envelope in her hand. Just as she stuffed the envelope into her trouser pocket, her phone beeped with a message notification. Beep. Yunjian opened the phone and clicked on the message. As soon as the message was opened, Yu Shaolua's message immediately popped up on the screen. "On November 15th, you will depart for the hunting school on time. Come to Min City Military Academy and meet up with the other 2 comrades. At that time we will send you to the hunting school. You will stay in the hunting school for a year. You will stay at home for the next few days to prepare everything and wait for departure." On November 15th, Ce's birthday was on November 11th, which meant that she could accompany him at the Inhun organization for 4 days. Chapter 1825. Of course, before Ce's birthday and before heading to the hunting school, Yunjian had something else she had to attend to. She had to head to the martial arts family and retrieve the envelope that her mentor had left in the family. The envelope contained a detailed way to contact her mentor. After dinner and returning home, Ce tugged Yunjian's hand and led her into the house. If one were to ask why Ce was pulling Yunjian into the house, there was no need to ask. It was to make a baby. Once they entered the house, Ce pushed Yunjian against the door, using his tall and lean frame to press against her and speak to Yunjian in a numbing tone. "Xiao Jian." Ce's action sent a shiver down Yunjian's spine. Pressing her lips together, she was about to speak when Ce stopped her. His thick breath choked her. The faint, pleasant scent made Yunjian wrap her arms around his neck and stand on her tiptoes to deliver a kiss. The kiss lasted for more than 10 minutes. Xiaojian. Si murmured softly by Yunjian's ear. The sound numbed Yunjian so much that she slumped against him. Just as Si was about to unbutton Yunjian's shirt, Yunjian suddenly pressed his palm down. No, Xiaojian, I'll be gentle, Si murmured softly as he bent down beside her ear. No, I'm scared. Can we wait a little longer? Yunjian's eyes darted around as she found a random reason to tell Ce. Ce did not do anything else at that, but Yunjian could tell that he was disappointed. Yunjian felt guilty. She wanted to do it with him too, cough. But when she remembered that his birthday was coming up, Xiaojian, you guys are walking so fast. Mom can't catch up to you. Qin Yuru's voice came from downstairs. Yunjian quickly tidied herself up. Seeing that Ce did not move, she reached out to fasten a few buttons on Ce's chest. Feeling her small hands pressing on his chest, struggling to button it up, Ce grabbed her hands and bent down, his handsome face meeting her pretty and delicate face as he said, I'm sorry but I'm sorry but I'm sorry I'm sorry. Xiaojian, do you know how alluring you are right now? Ce's words made Yunjian blush. Other than him, there was no one else in this world who could make her, slaying God, the top secret agent in the international rankings, reveal such a girlish expression. Do it yourself. Yunjian gave up on helping Ce with the buttons and walked to the side. Ce could not help smirking when he saw Yunjian's behavior from behind. Was his Xiaojian shy now? Ce strode forward and pulled Yunjian into his arms, pressing Yunjian against the door with her in his arms before lowering his head to murmur softly in her ear. Xiaojian is the one who undid the buttons. She has to do it back. I'll let you go when she does it. Yunjian was bewildered by Ce's words. Let her go. While Yunjian did not know what Ce meant, Ce pressed himself against Yunjian and kissed her passionately. By letting her go, he meant that if she did not button his shirt when he kissed her, he would keep kissing her like this. Chapter 1826. Qin Yuru had rushed over because Xiao Yunju's mother had returned from recuperation overseas and was now staying at Gu Yunjian's house. The villa Ce bought was only a few minutes' walk away from Gu Yunjian's house, so Qin Yuru had hurried over to tell Yunjian about it. After all, it was Yunjian who brought Xiao Yunju back then. Qin Yuru knocked on the door twice and could not help muttering, Where did Xiao Jian and Ai go? The house is locked, they should be inside. Inside the house, the heavy atmosphere was still swirling in the air. Ce had pinned Yunjian against the door and placed a slender hand on the back of Yunjian's head to prevent it from hurting when it was knocked against the door. Ce, who felt shameless, kissed her with his lips, looking like he would not let go until she buttoned his shirt. Worse still, Qin Yuru was still outside the house. Yunjian's mouth was gagged by Ce, but she could only grope her way to Ce's chest. Yunjian could push Ce away with brute force and he would not retaliate, but she did not want him to be hurt, so she could only button Ce's shirt with a blush on her face from Qin Yuru, who was outside the door. Yunjian had only buttoned his shirt for Ce just now. Since she was kissed by Ce, she could not see where her hand was going. Perhaps it was because Ce was gripping her mouth, she could not find the right spot with her outstretched hand. As slaying god, she could slit the throat with a single slash and her hacking skills were the best in the world. As the goddess of sorcerer, she had ruled Yulong mainland for thousands of years and had once slain the gods of deity continent. She was regarded as an object of reverence and worship by the world. However, as his woman she was at a loss. Yunjian had only wanted to reach for the bottom button of his white shirt, but her head was held steady, so she could only grope blindly. Mama Qin Jejia and Si Gij must be in the house. Xiaozhu told me to tell you. Duan Li's sharp voice came from the staircase outside the house. Yunjian and Ce, who were in the house, heard it loud and clear. Duan Li's voice sounded particularly frightening. Her hand slipped from the bottom of Ce's shirt as if she was caught doing something naughty, and her right hand accidentally touched something indescribable. It was scalding and warm. Unable to react in time, Yunjian clenched her fists a few times. What was it? Soft and soft? Hard and hard? So big that she could not wrap her hand around it? Was it a gun he was hiding on him? Yunjian blinked. She could clearly feel the change in Ce's expression. As she thought about it, Ce suddenly stopped kissing her and grabbed her hand that was under him. Panting, he went to Yunjian's ear and whispered to Yunjian in a volume that only the two of them could hear. Xiaojian, are you playing with fire? She actually held his. If Qin Yuru and Duan Li, who were standing outside the door, were not here, he would have tossed her onto the bed right now. It was only then that Yun Jian realized what she was grabbing and blushed. Yun Jian was about to speak softly. Ce suddenly went to her ear and bit it softly, his warm breath blowing against her ear or neck. Yun Jian shuddered. Outside the house, Qin Yiru waited for a while but no one came out. Her first reaction was that something had happened to Xiao Jian and Ae. Qin Yiru quickly ran to get the spare key. Just as she was about to open the door, she saw Yun Jian walked out of the room drowsily and glanced at Qin Yiru, asking, "Mom, we just fell asleep. Is there anything you need?" "I thought something happened to you guys in the house. Xiao Zhu's mother is back. She's over there now. Do you want to go and take a look?" Qin Yiru breathed a sigh of relief. There were news reports about family members staying silent in their own bedrooms, only to find a corpse in front of them the next day when they opened the door. Death by electrocution, suffocation, and so on. It was inevitable that Qin Yiru was worried. "I'll go take a look." Yun Jian's cheeks were as red as a monkey's butt. Pretending that Ce was asleep, she walked out of the house and closed the door, not letting Ce out. She didn't even dare to imagine what had happened just now. Chapter 1827. Xiao Yunju's biological mother in this life was called Yun Hailan. Yun Hailan was stabbed in the stomach by Brother Niu, who was collecting protection fees. Yun Hailan almost died back then and was sent abroad by Yun Jian. She had been recuperating in the hospital for close to a year and was finally back now. Like Qin Yiru, Yun Hailan was a woman with a hard life, so when she saw her, she felt like she was seeing herself and was very courteous. When Yun Jian went to Gu Yunjian's house and saw Yun Hailan nearly knelt to Yun Jian. If it were not for Yun Jian back then, she would probably have died because she did not have the money to get her injuries treated. How could she have fully recovered today? In the end, it was Qin Yiru who stopped Yun Hailan, who was about to kneel. "Xiao Zhu is an obedient and sensible child. We haven't spent much time together, but we're like a family. You're Xiao Zhu's mother. We're a family from now on. I've heard about your family background from Xiao Jian. Why don't you stay in Longmen City and keep me company from now on? We've been with Xiao Zhu for a year, we can't bear to let him go. You stay. The place I work at is hiring. You can come to work with me and we can take care of each other. Don't leave." Qin Yiru stopped Yun Hailan, who was about to kneel before her, and blurted out everything she wanted to say. Sometimes, things that could be solved with just a few words had to be made like a parting of life and death. If Qin Yiru had not said those words, Yun Hailan would have left with Xiao Yunju. After all, she was embarrassed to stay here. However, what Qin Yiru said made Yun Hailan waver. Longmen City's economy was more developed than Yun Hailan's hometown. The security here was much better, so there was no need to collect protection fees. Therefore, Yun Hailan thanked Yun Jian and Qin Yiru a few times and was just short of kowtowing. In the end, she stayed with Xiao Yunju. After that, Yun Jian wasn't worried anymore. At first, he was worried that Yun Hailan would insist on taking Xiao Yunju away. But from the looks of it, Xiao Yunju wouldn't go with Yun Hailan. Yun Jian was relieved. After Adam announced the good news, Mo Sen, as the older brother, began to arrange Adam and Lan Su's wedding date. Lin Wei returned to an Hun organization while Shuiying brought Si Luo back to an Hun organization to have a baby. His bet with Adam was still there. Everything seemed to have gone back to square one. Ce had returned to an Hun, and this time, it was Yun Jian who chased him back to an Hun. When everything was settled, Yun Jian put on her shoulder bag, which contained the butterfly knife given to her by Mu Ying, as well as the things she usually carried, and set off for the martial arts family. The letter Lan Su gave her contained the detailed address of this martial arts family. This martial arts family was different from other martial arts families. It was located in a small ravine in a very poor mountainous area. It would take more than 3 hours to get from the city to the county in the mountainous area and then to the nearest town. After that, it would take 1 or 2 hours to reach the destination on foot. The nearest town to the destination was called Yunling Town. It was a very fairy-like name. Yun Jian's destination was a place called Yunling Mountain. The martial arts family was built on Yunling Mountain. The construction of this martial arts family was similar to a large temple, but it wasn't a place to burn incense and pray. When Yun Jian arrived at Yunling Town, she was carrying her shoulder bag. Just as she asked the boss of a shop for the location of Yunling Mountain, the boss asked her in surprise, "You're going to Yunling Mountain too? You're going to the martial arts family, the Huang family, to learn martial arts, right?" Yun Jian nodded. Naturally, she wouldn't reveal her intentions. Haha, the Huang family's martial arts are famous. Many people have come to the mountain recently to learn martial arts. Chapter 1828. The Huang family was that martial arts family. The Huang family was a martial arts family that had been passed down since ancient times. Among the martial arts families they were considered the top. Therefore, every year many youths who loved martial arts would go to Yunling Mountain to study under the Huang family. When the shop owner heard that Yun Jian was going to Yunling Mountain, he naturally wanted her to learn martial arts. The others were all tall and strong young men who went to Yunling Mountain together to learn martial arts. There were also young ladies who would follow the tall and strong young men to Yunling Mountain to learn martial arts. Of course, those young ladies would leave after a few days. However, a girl like Yun Jian who was carrying a shoulder bag was obviously going to learn martial arts. The shop owner had never seen such a girl before, so he was surprised when he saw her. He recommended Yun Jian to get acquainted with a few young men in his shop who were also going to Yunling Mountain. When they heard that someone was going to Yunling Mountain, a few young men who were eating in the shop quickly came out to greet her. After all, it was a very good thing to be able to make a few friends in an unfamiliar place. Hello. Are you going to Yunling Mountain too? My name is Song Jiechi. I'm going to Yunling Mountain with my brother, Song Jiahui, and a few friends to learn martial arts. Are you going too? The girl who didn't have time to finish her bowl walked out of the shop and greeted Yun Jian. The girl's name was Song Jiechi. Song Jiechi was very welcoming to Yun Jian. Yun Jian nodded subtly. I'm Jiechi's brother, Song Jiahui. I'm a university student. This is an activity organized by our club. We're going to learn martial arts from a proper martial arts family. A handsome boy stood beside her. He was about 18 or 19 years old, about 1 or 2 years older than Song Jiechi. He looked very similar to Song Jiechi. One look and one could tell that they were handsome and beautiful. The boy who called himself Song Jiahui politely introduced himself to Yun Jian. Yun Jian also nodded politely at the two of them. Little girl, don't be fooled by Jiahui and Jiechi's skinny looks. We're all from the same university. In our martial arts club, one of them is the president and the other is the vice president. They're very strong. Most of the boys in the school are no match for them. Another boy walked out of the shop. This boy had dyed his hair yellow. He looked like a local ruffian, but he was quite easygoing. He didn't feel like a hooligan at all. After introducing Song Jiechi and Song Jiahui, the boy stuck out his tongue at Yun Jian and introduced himself. My name is Lin Xiang. I'm in the same university as them. I'm a member of the martial arts club. According to Song Jiechi, there were 5 members of their martial arts club. Other than Song Jiechi, the other 4 were boys. These people were very friendly and Yun Jian didn't know the way, so she went with them. Song Jiechi and the others hadn't finished their wontons yet, so Yun Jian also walked into the store and sat at a table. In addition to Song Jiechi and the other 4, there were 3 other people who were planning to go up the mountain with them. These 3 people were slightly older than Song Jiechi's group. They were all in their 20s. There were 2 men and 1 woman. These 2 men were quite friendly. They introduced themselves to Yun Jian. Their names were Gong Yiba and Ma Qinggong. However, the woman in her 20s wasn't particularly good-looking. She was only about 1.52 meters tall, but she weighed 120 kilograms. She didn't even bother to stand up. When Yun Jian walked in just now, this woman glanced at Yun Jian with a strange look. Then she buried her head and ate her wontons. After eating the wontons in her bowl, this woman knocked her chopsticks on her bowl and chopsticks. She looked up at Yun Jian and asked in a strange tone. Chapter 1829. Adolescent girls were more or less rebellious. If they weren't rebellious, it would be unscientific. The woman who spoke was called Wang Gonggong. Wang Gonggong didn't look very good. Her nose was a little flat, but her face was covered with thick makeup. She looked like a typical gangster. Wang Gonggong, Gong Yiba, and Ma Qinggong were all university students. However, they were in their 4th year and were obviously a few years older than Song Jiechi and the rest. Wang Gonggong was a typical gangster among the female students. She smoked, drank, and went out to play with men. She didn't go back to the dormitory during university curfew. She fell in love and acted like a lady in front of boys. Although Wang Gonggong was ugly and had a bad figure, there were always some boys who were willing to date her when she mingled in society. Wang Gonggong was a quiet girl, but she didn't give any face when she spoke. Of course, this silence was also an act. As long as she was in front of a handsome boy, she would immediately change her tune and act coquettishly. Gong Yiba and Ma Qinggong weren't the boys Wang Gonggong liked, so she couldn't be bothered to pretend. Wang Gonggong said right away that Yun Jian had come to such a place alone because she had fallen out of love. because a girl like her wouldn't think that Yun Jian was a capable person. Hey, what do you mean by that? Can't she come here alone to learn the profound martial arts of our country? Why do you make it sound like a girl can only come out alone when she's heartbroken? The first person who was unhappy with Wang Gonggong's words was Song Jiechi. Song Jiechi shouted at Wang Gonggong. Can I say it? I think she came here alone because she's heartbroken. Wang Gonggong glared at Song Jiechi. Song Jiechi was so angry that she almost flipped the table. In the end, Song Jiahui calmed her down. If it weren't for Gong Yiba and Ma Qinggong's good attitude, Song Jiechi and the rest wouldn't have followed Wang Gonggong. Yun Jian pursed her lips and ignored Wang Gonggong. 1.5 hours later, they set off from Yunling town and finally arrived at the foot of Yunling mountain. After another hour of climbing, they finally reached the top of the mountain. As soon as they reached the top, they saw a huge ancient building that looked like a temple. However, its architectural style was completely different from that of a temple. There was also a plaque hanging above the entrance. On the plaque, from right to left, there were 4 words written in ancient seal script. Heavenly Dao Huang family. As soon as Yun Jian and the others walked through the gate, they saw a group of people shouting and practicing martial arts with an old man who looked like a cultivator immortal standing on the high steps. Every time he displayed a fist technique, a loud shout would come from his throat. Ha! This was an orthodox martial arts family. Are you here to practice martial arts as well? Seeing that someone had entered the door, the old man jumped down from the stairs. After instructing the disciples around him to practice freely, he walked towards Yun Jian and the others. Yes. Song Jiechi and the others replied excitedly. Yun Jian didn't have the time to stay here and practice martial arts with them. She did not forget her purpose, which was to get the letter. Song Jiechi and the others looked at the old man excitedly and respectfully, trying to join the disciples who practiced martial arts. Yun Jian's words suddenly rang out in front of Song Jiechi, Song Jiahui, Wang Gonggong and the others. She said to the old man. Chapter 1830. Yun Jian's words carried a certain authority, causing the elder to pause. Song Jiechi, Song Jiahui, Lin Xiang and even Wang Gonggong were speechless. What Yulong continent, daughter of the Wu clan, sorcerer goddess? What the hell was this? Moreover, wasn't Yun Jian here to learn martial arts like them? Why did she ask the elder to meet the head of the Huang clan the moment she arrived? What daughter of the Wu clan? What is sorcerer goddess? Are you here to engage in crooked practices? Didn't you ask around before you came? The head of the Huang clan, Huang Bidian, isn't someone anyone can meet. Some people don't even get to meet the head of the Huang clan from the time they joined the clan to learn martial arts until they left. You're just a lovelorn girl with no power or influence. Why would the head of the Huang clan want to meet you? Even Wang Gonggong, who wasn't very satisfied with Yun Jian, was in awe of the Huang clan, which was ranked first among the martial arts clans. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Wang Gonggong took the initiative to speak to Yun Jian. His words sounded as if Yun Jian had really come here because she was heartbroken and was here to cause trouble. Song Jiechi and the rest didn't say anything. The old man, who had been teaching a group of students who were also apprentices, was also surprised. Most of the apprentices who came to the Huang clan to learn martial arts were in awe when they spoke to the Huang clan. Not to mention Yun Jian, who directly walked up and asked the head of the Huang clan to meet her. She was totally different. The old man had never seen such a clean and tidy little girl with a shoulder bag say such words the moment she came to his door. Obviously, the elder and the people around him didn't know about Yulong continent, much less the sorcerer clan. Of course, Yun Jian said this because she knew that the head of the Huang clan, Huang Bidian, must know about the existence of Yulong continent. Putting aside how many times the head of the sorcerer clan, Wu Lan, had sent people to the Huang clan to collect letters, but to no avail. Just based on the fact that Huang Bidian had saved his master's life and left him a letter, his master must have told Huang Bidian a thing or two. However, the old man in front of her didn't know that. When he saw Yun Jian open her mouth and asked to see the head of the Huang family, Huang Bidian, he was stunned for a moment, then quickly recovered. Is my Huang family's patriarch someone you can meet just because you want to? The old man immediately drooped his head with an unkind look on his face. Second uncle, what's wrong? Who made you unhappy? At this time, a young girl walked in through the door. She was about 16 or 17 years old and was quite pretty. After the young girl walked in, she circled around Yun Jian and asked the old man. She wanted to see your father as soon as she came up the mountain. Of course I won't agree. Chapter 1831. The three girls in black were from the sorcerer tribe of the Yulong continent. Yun Jian blinked. Of course she knew why the three girls were here. The sorcerer tribe leader Wu Lan had sent people from the sorcerer tribe to the Huang family for a few letters. However, no matter how tempting the sorcerer tribe was, the Huang family leader Huang Bidian did not waver. The three girls must have been sent by Wu Lan to ask for the letters again. They just happened to bump into her this time. The three of them quickly knelt down and bowed. She. Why are they kneeling to her? Wang Gonggong's eyes turned to Yun Jian without blinking. Her pupils constricted slightly. Wang Gonggong did not hate Yun Jian very much. She did not want Yun Jian to die either. What she said before sounded like she was targeting Yun Jian. However, Wang Gonggong had a habit of picking on people. Yun Jian, why are they kneeling to you? Wang Gonggong was not the only one surprised. Even Song Jiechi and Song Jiehui were shocked. Surprise flashed across everyone's faces. This is not the feudal society of the ancient times. Everyone is equal. Where is your dignity? Could it be that she threatened you? Get up. Wang Gonggong was a very mysterious person. When she was in a good mood, she was nice to everyone. When she was in a bad mood, she was not nice to anyone. Seeing the three girls in black kneeling in front of Yun Jian and bowing to Yun Jian with the etiquette of the Yulong continent, she could not take it anymore. Or maybe the three girls in black were too mysterious. People were all cheap. If someone acted like they did not want to talk to you and did not take you seriously, you would think that this person was good and want to get close to her. Wang Gonggong felt that the three black-clothed girls were quite mysterious, so he wanted to make friends with them and tried to pull them over. However, when Wang Gonggong reached out her hand, one of the three girls in black pushed her away and ignored Wang Gonggong. You don't have to kneel here. After Wang Gonggong was pushed away by one of the three black-clothed girls, Yun Jian's voice rang out. Hearing this, the three girls in black who had ignored Wang Gonggong immediately stood up and retreated to the side. This degree of obedience was in stark contrast to his action of pushing Wang Gonggong away. Wang Gonggong's face instantly darkened. Second uncle, look, this sister looks like a good person. I'll go call my dad. When Huang Linger saw this, she turned her head and winked at Huang Bihai. She then turned around and walked towards her father's residence. Huang Bihai simply couldn't stop this naughty girl. By the time he shouted, Huang Linger had already walked far away. After a while, Huang Linger brought over a man in his 50s. He was wearing a righteous martial arts uniform and had short hair. He was about to enter his old age. This person was the head of the Huang family, Huang Bidian. Dad, it's this sister. Huang Linger led Huang Bidian to Yun Jian. She leaned forward mischievously and stuck out her tongue at everyone. Then she pointed at Yun Jian. It was apparent that Huang Bidian had heard about Yun Jian from Huang Linger before he came. Coupled with the presence of the three witches, Huang Bidian had basically determined Yun Jian's identity. He looked at Yun Jian and frowned. You're the disciple of expert Bailey? The witch tribes. Which god? Bailey was a surname. The expert Bailey that Huang Bidian mentioned was her teacher. Yun Jian nodded. You can say that. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have learned all of this. Then I can't give you the letter. Huang Bidian frowned and refused. In the eyes of everyone present, Huang Bidian was a supreme existence. The head of the Huang family. The head of the Huang family, which was ranked first among the martial arts families. Huang Bidian directly rejected Yun Jian. No one was surprised. However, they all thought that Yun Jian would definitely beg Huang Bidian for what she wanted. She seemed to be begging Huang Bidian for the letter. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian would beg Huang Bidian to give her the letter, Yun Jian's eyes flashed with a murderous intent. Standing in front of everyone, her petite figure refracted the words that made everyone present unable to help but submit to her. In the next second, she flipped her hands and two butterfly knives appeared in her hands, one on each side. The blades reflected the sunlight, and the light from the knives blinded everyone's eyes. They couldn't help but squint. When everyone opened their eyes to look at her, they heard her cold words suddenly ring out. Chapter 1832. She had to get this letter. It was not only because her mentor in her past life had taught her these skills and allowed her to survive in that bloody world. Yun Jian's intuition told her that her mentor, Bailey Expert, had an inextricable relationship with the thousands of continents. She had sent Wu Lan to search the entire Yulong mainland, but she could not find any trace of her mentor, Bailey Expert. On Earth, as long as one was a righteous earthling, nothing could escape her eyes. In Yulong mainland, the power of the sorcerer tribe was spread all over the continent. However, she could not find any information about her mentor. What did this mean? The only explanation was that her mentor was neither from Earth nor the Yulong mainland. It was more likely that he came from a continent of a higher level than Yulong mainland. Although Yulong mainland was not the lowest level continent, in the thousands of years since the sorcerer god's departure, Yulong mainland had fallen from its former glory of being second only to deity mainland. Yun Jian's intuition told her that her mentor was most likely from deity mainland. Yun Jian did not know that Ce had regained all his memories, so she did not ask him. Her soul returned to reality. When Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone's pupils contracted. Even Huang Bidian sucked in a deep breath. Kosha mercenaries? Slaying God. Apart from Huang Bidian and Huang Bihai who took a deep breath, Lin Xiang also cried out in surprise. It was obvious that they knew what these two names represented. After exclaiming this, Lin Xiang frowned. He didn't even know why he was exclaiming. These two titles, I seem to have heard of them somewhere before? University students would not pay attention to these things. Most university students would only pay attention to the opposite sex. They did not pay attention to national or international affairs at all. Sometimes, when the class subscribed to a newspaper, the newspaper would report on national or international affairs. Only then would the students pay more attention to it. Of course, the people who knew about organizations or people like Kosha mercenaries and slaying God were usually those who were in this world. Huang Bidian and Huang Bihai must have heard about it. But for university students like Lin Xiang, Song Jechi, Song Jiahui, and Wang Gonggong, even if they wanted to know, they had no way to do so. Haven't you heard a lot of things? You brat, you always say that you've heard of something big. Where did you hear it from? I can't tell you the details, so you should wash up and go to the side. Song Jiahui walked over and knocked on Lin Xiang's head as he said with a half-smile. Lin Xiang scratched his head and pursed his lips. I really seem to have heard of it somewhere before. But even so, whether it was Song Jechi, Song Jiahui, Lin Xiang, or Wang Gonggong, they were all shocked by Yun Jian's arrogant words. Perhaps Yun Jian's tone was too arrogant? Or perhaps it was because the titles of Kosha mercenaries and slaying God sounded domineering. When they turned to look at Huang Bidian and Huang Bihai's reaction, they saw their eyes widen. When they looked at Yun Jian again, they were so shocked that it was as if they had eaten dog poop. They looked as if they had heard something big that they had never heard of before. Especially Huang Bihai, who had been rude to Yun Jian from the start, he was the most unsettled. His hand was trembling like a spring as he pointed at Yun Jian. He screamed in horror, "Why, ahem." Huang Bidian was obviously smarter than Huang Bihai. He immediately stopped Huang Bihai from spilling the beans. Yun Jian's self-disclosure shocked Huang Bidian, but it changed his mind. Slaying God of Kosha mercenaries. Slaying God alone was enough to wipe out the Huang family, let alone slaying God who had Kosha mercenaries under her command. Therefore Huang Bidian did not change his mind. He could not. However, Huang Bidian had already handed over the letter when Wu Lan had sent someone to retrieve it. After 2 seconds of silence, Huang Bidian looked at Yun Jian and made his request. Chapter 1833. Huang Bitian's words caused everyone's hearts to tighten, especially Song Jechi, Song Jiahui, and Wang Gonggong. Song Jechi had even clasped her hands together. She was clearly not the main character, so why was she feeling nervous? It was as if she was the one who had to endure the hypnotism of the Huang family's eldest disciple. However, Song Jechi knew that her current reaction was no doubt that she was putting herself in the shoes of Yun Jian and Huang Bidian. It was like a racing enthusiast watching his favorite racer race against another excellent racer at the critical moment of rushing to the finish line, which made him feel nervous both physically and mentally. That was how Song Jechi felt at this moment. Yun Jian, who was standing in front of everyone, narrowed her eyes slightly. Her gaze was indifferent, but in front of everyone she accepted Huang Bitian's challenge without hesitation. All right. As long as she was given the chance, Yun Jian had never encountered anything she couldn't accomplish. Yun Jian knew that Huang Bidian had taken a step back. In the beginning, Huang Bidian had kept his mouth shut and refused to hand over the letter no matter what. Sometimes, revealing one's identity could save a lot of trouble. The reason Yun Jian brought up her identity today was to change Huang Bitian's mind. Yun Jian wasn't stupid. Unless she had no other choice, she wouldn't use the most absolute method to achieve her goal. For example, if Huang Bidian rejected her and she went on a killing spree, then not only would she be a lunatic but she would also be a fool. If one were to ask why this was the case, first of all, Yun Jian would be exhausting her own strength to wipe out the entire Huang family. The only benefit she would receive was a letter. Furthermore, she would have to use her Koxia mercenaries' influence to erase the Huang family's traces in history and on the international stage. It would be a waste of money and effort. It would be better for Huang Bidian to take a step back. It would be more convenient and simpler. Ling, call your eldest senior brother out. Only then did Huang Bidian turn his head to look at his youngest daughter, Huang Linger. Huang Linger pursed her lips and muttered, "Dad, you could have just given the letter to this big sister. Why did you have to call eldest senior brother out? It's so troublesome. Besides, she doesn't look like a bad person." Just as Huang Linger said this, she saw her father, Huang Bidian, cast a sidelong glance at her. Seeing this, Huang Linger's words were all buried in her stomach. In the end, Huang Linger was still somewhat afraid of her father. She was frightened by Huang Bitian's words. She turned around and pouted, then angrily ran to find her senior brother. "My apologies. Master Bailey's items have attracted a lot of attention in recent years. Many people have pretended to be Master Bailey's disciples and wanted to get them from me. So, please forgive me." After Huang Linger ran off to find her eldest senior brother, Huang Bidian turned his head and cupped his fists towards Yun Jian to express his apology. "It's fine," Yun Jian replied. Naturally, this was not a problem for her. Hypnotism was indeed her teacher's ultimate skill. Her teacher had also said that in this hypnotism, the most important thing for a scholar was talent. Those without talent would only be able to scratch the surface. Yun Jian was not boasting. Her teacher had told her this before. Her talent was the best among all the people he had met in his life. In less than 10 minutes, more than 10 people came into the house from the backyard. The man in the lead was about 20 years old. He had a dignified appearance and wore martial arts attire. He was the eldest senior brother of the Huang family that Huang Bidian had mentioned. The group of people beside the eldest senior brother of the Huang family consisted of both men and women. However, all of them wore proper martial arts attire. Clearly, these people were different from those who came to the mountain to learn martial arts. Chapter 1834. The orthodox successor of the Huang family's martial arts was led by this dignified man in his 20s. The group of people behind him were all successors of the Huang family. Apart from the Huang family eldest senior brother, any disciple that the Huang family head, Huang Bidian, took in would be included in the ranking. Huang Bitian's eldest disciple was this eldest senior brother. His second disciple was everyone's second senior brother, the second junior brother of his eldest disciple. In order of seniority, Huang Linger was Huang Bitian's daughter and his youngest disciple. Thus, she was the junior sister of these people. The ranking of orthodox martial arts families was indeed complicated. Those who were not in the circle would be confused by this complicated relationship. In short, there was one thing to remember. Wushu was the orthodox unique skill of an aristocratic family. The disciples of the head of the aristocratic family were the ones who were ranked among the senior brothers, junior brothers, sisters and junior sisters. They were different from those who came to learn from Huang Bihai like Song Jechi and the others. It was not only in terms of martial arts that the aristocratic families only passed down to their own members. They only taught some simple martial arts to outsiders. In terms of physical strength and endurance, the orthodox disciples of the Huang family started learning martial arts from a young age. As for people like Song Jechi who came to learn martial arts by themselves, some of them would leave after a few days or a few months. Their perseverance was definitely not as good as the orthodox disciples of the aristocratic families who started practicing martial arts from a young age. Master. The dozen or so people led by the Huang family eldest senior brother walked up to Huang Bidian and used the most standard martial arts hand gesture to bow to him. Huang Bidian nodded and waved his hand. Master, why did you call us out? Eldest senior brother of the Huang family asked. The Huang family eldest senior brother was called Huang Yiqing. This was not the Huang family eldest senior brother's real name. After the disciples of the Huang family became Huang Bitian's disciples, they were given names. According to the order, the men were called Huang Yiqing, Huang Erqing, the women were called Huang Yihong, Huang Erhong. These names were not particularly pleasant to the ears, but Huang Bidian felt comfortable using them. Of course, the Huang family eldest senior brother was already one, so the women were not named Huang Yihong. Huang Bitian's youngest daughter, Huang Ling'e, was an exception. I only called your eldest senior brother. Why did you call out the other senior brothers and sisters? Huang Bidian glanced at Huang Linger from the corner of his eyes. Hee, isn't this for everyone to join in the fun? Dad, look, everyone is bitterly practicing martial arts. This is so tiring. People should strike a balance between work and rest. Huang Linger mischievously winked at Huang Bidian. Huang Linger's senior brothers and sisters all covered their mouths and laughed. It was obvious that Huang Linger's mischievousness had not been going on for a day or two. Huang Bidian was so infuriated by Huang Linger's words that he wanted to scold her, but he couldn't bear to do so. In the end he could only keep his mouth shut. All right, so be it. Huang Bidian's face darkened. In the end he introduced Yun Jian to Huang Yiqing and asked Huang Yiqing to hypnotize Yun Jian. If she can withstand your hypnosis technique, then she must be the disciple of Bailey Jianren. Huang Bidian finished speaking and added another sentence. Yes. Huang Yiqing was very obedient. He only turned his head to look at Yun Jian, and did not show any other expression. The Huang family eldest senior brother, Huang Yiqing, was a dignified and upright man. His face was unforgettable. Her? She's Bailey Jianren's disciple? Master, I don't think there's even a need to try. Who is eldest senior brother? Don't you know how strong he is? Also, this girl is so skinny. Everyone has seen Bailey Jianren's appearance in the past. How could such a powerful master accept such a skinny girl as his disciple? Chapter 1835. The girl who spoke up was one of Huang Ling-er's senior sisters and Huang Bitian's disciple. Because she was ranked 9th among all the senior brothers and junior sisters, she was called Huang Jiuhong. As Huang Jiuhong spoke, she glanced at Yun Jian. From her expression, it seemed that she didn't like Yun Jian very much. Unlike Wang Gonggong, who didn't like Yun Jian, Wang Gonggong didn't have any bad feelings towards Yun Jian. At least he didn't want to kill Yun Jian. Huang Jiuhong also didn't have any bad intentions towards Yun Jian. Ordinary people didn't encounter many things and wouldn't be envied by girls. That was because they themselves were existences that didn't shine. If a person didn't exist, they would be automatically ignored by others. But a shining figure like Yun Jian was a piece of gold no matter where she went. As long as it was gold, it would always attract attention. Huang Jiuhong only looked down on Yun Jian because she thought she could defeat her most admired eldest senior brother. How many people had her eldest senior brother use the hypnosis technique taught by Master Bailey? How many people had fled because of her eldest senior brother's hypnosis technique? Why did Yun Jian think she could compare to her eldest senior brother? Jiuhong backed down. What did Master teach you not to look down on others? Even Huang Bidian himself thought that Yun Jian definitely couldn't compare to his eldest senior disciple. But Huang Bidian was a good person. He gave face to everyone. Some people would stand in front of you and look down on you, mocking and ridiculing you. Some people would look down on you but would give you face. When comparing the two, the latter would naturally be better. When Huang Jiuhong heard Huang Bitian's words, she curled her lips and muttered to herself, "What's wrong with you? You don't have any skills to begin with, and you don't allow people to talk about you? Then just wait and see. Watch my eldest senior brother beat you up." Once Huang Jiuhong gave the order, Huang Yiqing stepped forward and began hypnotizing Yun Jian in front of everyone, as per his master's order. Yun Jian could tell that Huang Yiqing's hypnotism was the most rudimentary and low-level technique he had ever learned. Perhaps this kind of hypnotism could be used in front of other people for a while, but in front of professionals, it was not qualified at all. The eldest disciple of the Huang family, Huang Yiqing, who was standing in front of Yun Jian, took out a rope with a small ball hanging from it. He placed the small ball in front of Yun Jian and shook it twice. Then he said in a delicate voice, "Close your eyes and open them again." These were all steps of hypnosis. Yun Jian did as she was told. Eldest senior brother is awesome. Let this overconfident girl know your strength. At this moment, Yun Jian heard Huang Jiuhong shout at Huang Yiqing. The surrounding people watched the scene with all their might. They were surrounded by people from all over the country who came here to learn martial arts. At this moment, Yun Jian and Huang Yiqing were looking at each other and using hypnotism. How could they not be interested in such an amazing battle? Some of them would only get to see such an interesting battle once in their lives. Hence they all gathered over. Those who could not all climbed to higher places to watch. For a moment, everyone held their breaths. At this moment Yun Jian opened her eyes. After Huang Jiuhong finished speaking, she suddenly said to Huang Yiqing, "Look, your junior sister is calling you." When Huang Yiqing heard Yun Jian's words, for some reason, he followed Yun Jian's words and glanced in Huang Jiuhong's direction. The moment he came back to his senses, his eyes met with Yun Jian's eyes again. However, there was an unusual color in Yun Jian's eyes. In the next second, Huang Yiqing suddenly hugged his head as if he had seen something he did not want to see. In front of everyone, he hugged his head and squatted on the ground. When Huang Bidian and Huang Bihai saw this, their faces turned pale with fright. Everyone's faces changed in shock. She actually managed to hypnotize Yiqing. She managed to hypnotize Yiqing in such a short time. This power, I've only seen it from expert Bailey. Huang Bidian was so shocked that he cried out on the spot. The words Yun Jian said to Huang Yiqing just now was the turning point in the counter-hypnosis. After hearing Huang Bitian's words and seeing that the battle had ended before it even started, and that Yun Jian had managed to hypnotize Huang Yiqing instead, everyone present had the same expression on their faces. They were so shocked that they could not react for a long time. They just stared blankly at the beautiful girl. From this, it could be seen how important this letter was to Huang Bidian. Once the envelope was handed to Yun Jian, the latter unwrapped the envelope in a few moves. Is this the letter left behind by Master Bailey? Let us take a look. We've already opened it anyway. Huang Jiuhong quickly dispelled the awkward atmosphere. She walked over and was about to look at the envelope in Yun Jian's hand. Just as she looked over, Yun Jian dodged. Huang Jiuhong stomped her foot and pouted. In the end, Huang Bidian glared at her and she didn't say anything. Everyone watched as Yun Jian opened the envelope and took it out. When she saw the words on the envelope, her eyes lit up. Then, she seemed to be shocked by the words on the envelope. Seeing this, the surrounding group of people were somewhat curious. Even Huang Bidian was curious. Yun Jian was the kind of person who could remain calm even if the sky collapsed. Huang Bidian felt the same way about her. When he saw her shocked expression, he couldn't help but be even more surprised. In fact, Yun Jian wasn't just shocked. Her heart was in turmoil. However, she didn't show it on her face. Chapter 1837. Yun Jian was rarely surprised. However, whenever she was surprised, she would only appear slightly surprised on the surface. However, for someone like Yun Jian who did not show her emotions on her face, a little surprise was enough to express the shock in her heart. The content of the letter was very simple. However, if one thought about it carefully, there was an inconceivable magical power to it. The content of the letter was as follows: Sha, my little disciple, although we have not formally acknowledged each other as your master, please allow me to address you as such. Were you surprised when you saw this letter? Are you surprised that I knew that the person who opened the letter wasn't family head Huang, but you? Were there many doubts in your heart? All these years, I know your every move, including you as the sorcerer god. How is it? That brat divine lord did not mistreat you, did he? If that brat mistreated you, I will definitely teach him a lesson in the future. That brat has been pestering you ever since you were the sorcerer god. He is like a shadow. I have helped you to stop him several times. The next time we meet, you must treat me to 100 bottles of good wine. No, that brat divine lord should be the one to invite me. If that brat dares to not invite me, let him hug his butt tightly. Don't let me catch him and give him 100 whips. Alright, I know that you must have many doubts now. It is not appropriate for me to say too much in this letter. Alright, my little disciple, I will not force you to say anything more. My good disciple, remember one thing. If you want to find me, go to the hunting academy. I will wait for you there. The way this letter was written was indeed her teacher's style. The handwriting was also written by her teacher, so there was no mistake. Yun Jian blinked. She was indeed surprised by the words in the letter. How did her teacher know that the person who received this letter was definitely her? Could it be that he had the ability to predict the future? Furthermore, he seemed to have known her when she was the sorcerer god in her previous life? He even knew Ce who was the divine lord? Yun Jian had not recovered all her memories as the sorcerer god, so she could not find traces of her teacher. And her teacher actually wanted her to go to the hunting school to find him? Everything was premeditated. Even when he was slaying God in his past life, his master's appearance was something that was bound to happen. Or perhaps, all of this was just a coincidence? Yun Jian, there seems to be words at the back of the letter too. Song Jiechi, who was standing in the distance, couldn't see the contents of the letter in Yun Jian's hand clearly. However, she could vaguely see that there were words on the back of the letter in Yun Jian's hand, so she reminded her. Upon hearing this, Yun Jian relaxed her brows slightly. She flipped the letter to the back and saw that the same words were written on the back of the letter. Following the long letter in front of him, it was clear that his teacher had added a sentence that sounded like an old urchin. By the way, after you come to the hunting school, bring the Divine Lord Kid here if it's convenient. However, even if you don't bring the Divine Lord Kid here, I know that kid is like a sticky candy, no different from a bum bug. Wherever you go he'll definitely follow. When Yun Jian read this, her teacher's smug expression as if he knew everything like the back of his hand flashed across her mind, along with the way he gently stroked his beard. She twitched the corner of her mouth, not knowing how to describe her current expression of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. What's written on the letter? Are you done reading it? Can you show it to us now? The more Huang Jiuhong looked at Yun Jian, the more curious she became. If it wasn't for Huang Bitian's gaze, Huang Jiuhong would have leaned over to look at the contents of the letter in Yun Jian's hand. Since the letter is already hers, let's not crowd around. Disperse, let's go and cultivate. Don't crowd around here. Huang Bitian waved his hand. Master, this letter? Yun Jian was the one who took it from you. What's wrong with us taking a look? Before Huang Jiuhong could finish her sentence. On the other side, Yun Jian had taken out a lighter from nowhere and burned the letter. After doing this, Yun Jian walked out. It seemed that she had to go to the hunting school this time. Since her teacher knew many of her identities, including her as the witch god. Then, did her teacher know the background of the mysterious person? And as the sorcerer goddess, why did she fall? Chapter 1838. Yun Jian was unaware of all these doubts. She had no way of finding them out at this moment. To solve her doubts, she had to go to the hunting school. Seeing Yun Jian burn the letter and walk out of the Huang family's door, everyone was shocked. Master, she burned the letter. She. Huang Jiuhong screamed in shock. The letter has been given to her. How she deals with it is her own business. Jiuhong, you are so impatient. If you continue to be like this in the future, then don't learn our Huang family's inherited martial arts. Our inherited martial arts are not suitable for someone as impatient as you. Huang Bitian interrupted Huang Jiuhong's words and said coldly with a sullen face. Hearing Huang Bitian's words, Huang Jiuhong was dumbfounded. Finally he swallowed his saliva and was speechless. Yun Jian, who was walking down the stairs, turned her head halfway and glanced at the plaque with the words Huang Family of the Heavenly Tao written on it. Then she turned her head to look at Song Jiechi and the rest. If Song Jiechi and the rest didn't know the way, she wouldn't have found the Huang family so quickly, and she wouldn't have received the letter her master left for her so quickly. Yun Jian pursed her lips and curled her lips at Song Jiechi before she left. We'll meet again if fate wills it. In the vast sea of people, if fate wills it, even 1 billion people wouldn't be able to stop fate from meeting again. But if fate wills it, even if they lived in the same neighborhood, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. After Yun Jian said that, she turned and left. Seeing this, Song Jiechi was stunned. Then she waved at Yun Jian and whispered, "Goodbye." After her rebirth, this was the first time Yun Jian went to the Inhun organization. Before her rebirth, she was an agent from the Inhun organization. The Inhun organization wasn't located on some remote island. Yun Jian knew the exact location. The Inhun organization wasn't under the jurisdiction of any country. It was extremely difficult for outsiders to enter Inhun organization. Some people couldn't even find the entrance to Inhun organization. The Inhun organization's base was huge. It would take a long time to drive from one end to the other. Yun Jian made a trip back to Longmen City and waited until the 10th of November to depart for Inhun Group. Before that, Mo Sen and Adam were left in Longmen City. Ce had to be by her side and Lan Su had just gotten pregnant. Adam naturally couldn't bear to take Lan Su on a long journey to Inhun organization. Mo Sen was the elder brother. In consideration of his younger brother, Mo Sen decided to return to Inhun organization by himself. Of course, during this period of time, Mo Sen and Rockberry maintained the kind of relationship where they would occasionally greet each other when they saw each other, but neither of them would speak much. Luo Berry didn't talk much because she was shy. When she saw the man she liked, she would talk incoherently. Mo Sen, on the other hand, did not know what to say. Mo Sen returned to Inhun earlier than Yun Jian. On the night of his return, he came to Qing Yu's house early in the morning. Yun Jian snatched Qing Yu's pillow and sat on the sofa, waiting for Qing Yu's homemade pastries for her to eat. Qing Yu had stopped researching poisons recently and had started researching pastries instead. The pastries tasted horrible, but they were getting better recently. When Qingyu brought out the pastries she made herself, Gunyanji pinched her nose without giving face. "Ah, what's this burnt smell? It's suffocating." "It's good enough that I'm cooking for you for free. Why are you yelling? You're eating my food and staying at my place. You're even sleeping on my bed and wearing my pajamas. You're such a busybody, Gunyanji," Qingyu retorted. Okay, let sister have a taste." Seeing Qingyu bring out the pastries, Gunyanji stretched her hand to take them. Sister Qingyu's pastries are getting better and better. Luo Berry was a sweet talker. She stuck her tongue out at Qingyu after taking a bite. She shoved the pastry into her mouth, chewing and swallowing it without hesitation. After finishing the pastries slowly, Yunjian closed her eyes and rested her hands behind her head. After 2 seconds of silence, Yunjian suddenly spoke. "You've been standing outside the door for half an hour. Aren't you going to knock? Are your legs tired?" When Yunjian finished, everyone's hands paused. Luo Berry blinked and ran to open the door. Luo Berry did not know who it was. She thought it was Sister Qingyu's brother Yunyi. However, when Luo Berry opened the door and wanted to call out Brother Yunyi obediently, she was met with Mo Sen's calm and handsome face. She was so shocked that she almost fell backward. Chapter 1839. It wasn't the first time Luo Berry had been so careless. Perhaps it was her personality. When she suddenly saw someone she wanted to see, she would be frightened. After Mo Sen helped her up, Luo Berry blushed. "How old are you? Why are you so careless? What if you fall and hurt yourself?" Mo Sen yelled at Luo Berry after straightening him up. What if she fell and hurt herself? He was about to leave and return to the Inhun organization. She didn't know how to take care of herself. What if she hurt herself again? I'm sorry." Luo Berry shrank back from Mo Sen's shout. She couldn't help but apologize to Mo Sr. Aya, little strawberry, you didn't hit him. Why are you apologizing? Can't you tell that he cares about you?" Gunyanji walked over and grabbed Luo Berry's hand, pulling her to the side. With that, Gunyanji was about to pull Luo Berry to the side. "Never see you again?" When Mo Sun heard Gunyanji say that Luo Berry would never see him again, his heart tightened. Gunyanji giggled at Yunjian, then turned to look at Mo Sun fiercely. She put her arm around Luo Berry's shoulder and said to Mo Sun confidently, "That's right. My little strawberry will be with me every day from now on. We'll sleep together, bathe together. All right, we'll even rub each other's backs when we bathe." Gunyanji even reached out to rub Luo Berry's back. It looked like she was really rubbing Luo Berry's back. Gunyanji's words made Luo Berry's face turn as red as an apple. Yunjian admired it as she ate the pastries. She was so relaxed that she almost crossed her legs. "Oh." Hearing Gunyanji's words, Mo Sen's face darkened. He said it without even thinking. Luo Berry wanted to sleep with Gunyanji? Bathe together? She wanted to rub each other's backs when bathing? He would never allow it. For some reason, Luo Berry's face turned red when she heard Mo Sen say, "No." "Ioyo, what right do you have to say no? I'm being intimate with my little strawberry. Why are you, an outsider, joining in the fun? Speaking of which, my little strawberry's development is really good. Those 2 big breasts, I can't even hold them with my hands." Gunyanji smiled wretchedly. She even moved her fingers up and down in a circle to demonstrate grabbing breasts. There was no need to mention how wretched that was. At this moment, Mo Sen's face was as dark as it could get. The next second he suddenly grabbed Luo Berry's hand and dragged her out. Before he left he said, "I'm taking her away. I can't let her stay in this dirty place." Just because of this reason he took her away. Gunyanji waited for Mo Sen to take Rockberry away, then held her stomach and rolled around on the sofa where Yunjian was sitting. The sofa was very soft and Yunjian sat on it, trembling from Gunyanji's actions. In the end, Yunjian slapped Gunyanji off the sofa and onto the floor. Less than 2 days after Mo Sen took Rockberry to Inhun organization, on the 10th of November, Yunjian also set off for Inhun organization. On the 11th of November, CE had just returned to his residence from Inhun organization's base. As soon as he arrived, his eyes lit up slightly. His residence was surrounded by balloons, and the display in the middle of the room even had a big happy birthday written on it. Birthday? Only then did CE remember that today was his birthday. Since he was young, he had never celebrated his birthday again after his mother passed away. In the end, he even forgot his own birthday. Who released the balloons today? Who released the birthday wishes? Only the 4 leaders of Inhun organization could enter his residence. Other than that, if anyone else entered, the snipers outside would immediately shoot the person who did not have time to enter, regardless of gender. Just as Ce was thinking about this, the bathroom door in his residence suddenly opened, and a petite figure flashed out of the bathroom. Yunjian, who had just finished showering, exuded a milky fragrance. Her hair was disheveled and was still wet. Yunjian only had a bath towel around her. Her voluptuous breasts were wrapped under the short bath towel, revealing half of her full breasts. Her little feet were bare as she stood on the floor. Just looking at her was enough to arouse one's desire. Chapter 1840. Yunjian had been in the Inhun organization for many years in her previous life, so she knew the inside of the organization like the back of her hand. However, she had never come into contact with the leader of Inhun organization in her previous life. The Inhun organization had a residence specially for the leader, but from what Yunjian knew in her previous life, the leader rarely came back here. Hence, Yunjian didn't know much about the leader of the Inhun organization, Ce. In addition, Ce's residence was surrounded by an inescapable net. There were snipers on all four sides, and the place was strictly guarded 24/7. Even a fly wouldn't be able to fly in. Other than the four leaders of the Inhun organization, Adam, Mo Sen, Shuiying and Lin Wei, anyone else who stepped into this place would be killed without mercy. This rule had been set by Ce when Yunjian was in the Inhun organization in her previous life. In her second life, Yunjian didn't expect that after going around in circles, she would escape from the control of the Inhun organization after obtaining the kosher mercenaries with much difficulty in her previous life. After going back and forth, she was back here today. And today she was in the room of the leader of the Inhun organization, Ce. No matter how good the snipers at the door were, they couldn't sense when Yunjian avoided their attention and walked into Ce's residence. No one knew that Yunjian had not only walked into Ce's residence, but also decorated it meticulously. This lively style was completely different from the lifeless style of Ce's original residence. Ce's residence in the Inhun organization was all black, especially his bedroom, which stood out. Before Yunjian came, the curtains in the room were all black. As long as the curtains were drawn, even day would turn into night. The bed, including the pillows and covers on the bed, were all black. The wall at the head of the bed was also black, except for the other three walls which were painted white, and some other places were painted with other colors that could be ignored. The entire layout was black. Yunjian went into the house and blew up a few balloons. She wrote the words "Happy Birthday" on the screen. The atmosphere in the house was obviously much better, and it was no longer as lifeless as it was at the beginning. The room was filled with Ce's unique scent. Yunjian had been lying on Ce's bed and taking a nap for the entire morning. It was noon and the sun was high in the sky. Even though the air conditioner was turned on, Yunjian still felt sticky. Hence, she borrowed Ce's towel and entered Ce's bathroom to take a cold shower. However, she saw Ce the moment she stepped out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her waist. Yunjian wasn't wearing anything except a towel wrapped around her chest. She had just taken a shower, so the fragrance of her body made Ce, who had just returned to the room, feel an indescribable feeling. He felt his lower body tighten. You're back. Yunjian gulped and looked up at Ce, who was walking toward her. Her red lips parted slightly as she held on to the towel to prevent it from falling. Yunjian had no idea how alluring she looked to Ce. Ce stared at Yunjian with a burning gaze, looking like he wanted to bore a hole through her. Yunjian was a little embarrassed from being stared at. She blushed and looked down at the floor, saying, "Cough. It's your birthday today, so I came all the way from Longmen City to celebrate your birthday." Before she could finish, however, a familiar fresh scent that belonged to a man wafted to her nose. In the next second, Ce wrapped his arms around Yunjian, who was only wrapped in a towel with half of her hand still holding onto the towel. Yunjian opened her mouth and buried herself in Ce's embrace. She was so embarrassed that she could not speak. Ce's magnetic and rich male voice rang above her. There was a subtle hint of uncontrollable emotion in his voice that was different from before. "Xiaojian, you're so beautiful." Chapter 1841. Yunjian's entire body trembled slightly. Ce was acting very strangely today. In spite of it, Yunjian had come prepared. A second ago, Ce had placed his hands on Yunjian's buttocks, causing Yunjian's face to turn red. The next second, Yunjian stood on her tiptoes, wrapped her arms around Ce's neck and kissed him. Ce had not expected Yunjian to suddenly kiss him. Her sweet lips were like ice cream on a hot summer day. Just as you were about to faint from the heat, your eyes were about to swell, your whole body was sweating profusely, and you were about to faint from heatstroke. It gave you a refreshing feeling. However, to Ce, her beautiful lips were even sweeter than an ice cream on a hot summer day when he was about to faint. She was an existence that could not be compared to any cheap goods because she was his one and only. Although this was not the first time she had kissed Ce, Yunjian did not know why, but she felt that this kiss with Ce was very different from the previous ones. Perhaps it was because she only had a towel wrapped around her body today? Towel. Yunjian suddenly remembered that she only had a towel wrapped around her body, and the towel only covered half of her chest. She was not wearing anything underneath. Yunjian's slender arms and half of her chest were in close contact with the air, and it was chilly. At first, Yunjian still used one hand to hold on to the shaky and unstable towel. However, when she saw Ce earlier, Yunjian forgot about this. She reached out and wrapped her arms around Ce's neck and kissed him on the lips. She only remembered her current situation when she lost herself in the kiss. At this moment, Yunjian's face flushed red. Just as Yunjian was about to withdraw her hand from Ce's neck, the shaky towel on her body suddenly disintegrated and fell. That white towel had fallen off. In a lounge somewhere in the Inhun organization, Lin Wei sat on the sofa in the lounge. Beside him, Shuiying was half sitting on Lin Wei's table. His slender legs, perfect curves, and that handsome face. Lin Wei's appearance leaned towards calmness, with a hint of handsomeness in his aura. Although he was handsome, Lin Wei gave people the impression that he was calm and experienced. The only flaw was the long scar on Shuiying's neck. But the deeper the scar, the more it showed his masculinity. Although it looked terrifying, it didn't affect Shuiying's handsomeness at all. At this moment, Shuiying was half sitting on the table. One of his slender legs was leaning against the table while the other was resting on the ground. No matter how one looked at him, one could see how handsome he was. Although Lin Wei looked like an old Taoist, his appearance was young. His face was enough to charm a group of young girls. At this moment, Shuiying shook his legs and looked sideways at Lin Wei. He suddenly teased, "Lin Wei, when are you going to find a woman to carry on your family line?" If it was in the past, Shuiying wouldn't have dared to call Lin Wei an old bachelor. Although Shuiying was the most handsome of the four great commanders, in terms of strength, Lin Wei was the strongest of the four great commanders. Shuiying dared to say this today because Mo Sen had returned to the Inhun organization. Mo Sen and Lin Wei had a good relationship. If he said a few words to Lin Wei and Lin Wei got angry, he could still find Mo Sen to back him up. Lin Wei was a man of few words. Just as Shuiying finished speaking, Lin Wei suddenly replied seriously, "Soon." Although these words were serious, Shuiying rolled his eyes. Since when wasn't Lin Wei a man of few words? He still hoped to chat with him? Dream on. Cough, Adam's wife is already pregnant. You're already 25 years old. You can't fall behind. Shuiying jumped down from the table and walked to Lin Wei. He patted Lin Wei's shoulder and said this. With that, he walked out of the office in a carefree manner. Along the way he even greeted Mo Sen who was walking to the office. Ce's residence in the bedroom. Chapter 1842. The moment Ce picked her up and threw her onto the bed, Yunjian's cheeks were as red as a monkey's butt. She was certain that she had never blushed like this in her entire life. It was not just in this life. As slaying God and witch goddess 2 lifetimes ago, she had not blushed as much as she did today. Ce tossed the towel far away and tossed Yunjian gently onto the soft bed. Ce's eyes were glued to Yunjian. Even when he took off his jacket and shirt and unbuckled his belt, his gaze did not leave her. Ce exposed his muscular chest and stared at Yunjian before making his way to Yunjian who was placed on the bed. His pants were still on but his eyes were fixed on Yunjian, never moving away from the deep gaze that met hers. Ce, who could be sharp and ruthless to others without batting an eyelid, was now attracted to Yunjian. There was an unprecedented gentleness on his face. It was a gentle expression that might seem a little forced to an outsider. Seeing Yunjian with her arms crossed and a smirk on Ce's face, his magnetic voice suddenly rang, making Yunjian's ears tingle and her body tremble. "Xiao Jian, move your hand away." It was undeniable that Ce was getting more and more wretched. If the elderly saw him for the first time, they would only think that Ce was decent and reliable. He was not lustful and made people feel that he was dependable. If Yunjian heard what the elderly said now, Yunjian would probably smash them to death with a brick. It would be a miracle. She half covered her chest with her hand to prevent herself from being exposed to Ce. Ce had been looking at her lustfully since just now and was even asking her to move her hand away. If anyone dared to say that Ce was not lustful, she would fight them to the death. In spite of it, Yunjian was too embarrassed to move her hand away. Yunjian's blush was comparable to Chili's. Just as she spoke, her words were blocked by Ce's lips. The man was really self-taught when it came to kissing. Perhaps it was due to his previous experience. Ce caught her easily. Yunjian was numb from the kiss, unable to muster any energy. She didn't even know when the hand that was covering her chest had been moved away and replaced with a bigger palm. And Hun Group's lounge. Ever since the noisy snow eagle left, Ling Wei's ears finally quieted down. He lifted his slender legs and stood up from the sofa. Just as he was about to go to the killer training camp, he bumped into Mo Sr. "You're going to the training camp?" It was no wonder that the two of them had similar personalities. They even had a general understanding of where the other was going. "Okay." Lin Wei nodded. Lin Wei was the one who spoke the most when talking to Mo Sr. "Snow Eagle said that you're looking for a woman to carry on your family line?" Mo Sun was not shy at all. "I'm planning to." Lin Wei answered Mo Sun briefly as he followed him out. "Who are you looking for?" Mo Sun asked again. "We'll talk about it later." Lin Wei did not have any requirements for his other half. He felt that it was enough for him to have a woman who could bear his children. As long as this woman was loyal to him and did not cheat on him, he would not find another woman in his life. It did not matter if there was no sex for love. If the future Snow Eagle heard Lin Wei's monologue, he would probably kick him and scold him. What happened to the sex for love? Go eat sh*t. There hasn't been any outstanding assassins in the training camp recently. Lin Wei had already arrived at the assassin training camp with Mo Senator. He stood not far away from the training camp and spoke briefly. "I'll pay attention and send someone over as soon as there's one," Mo Sin said to Lin Wei as they walked. In Ce's bedroom. Ce had already taken off all his clothes. The two were hugging each other. Chapter 1843. Xiaojian, you're mine. You're mine. Ce's breath blew against Yunjian's ear as he licked and kissed Yunjian's ear. Yunjian was numb from head to toe, unable to react for a long time. Just as Yunjian was numb from embarrassment and Ce was about to enter the main topic. Ding 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 ding. The doorbell of Ce's residence rang. A certain someone kept pressing the doorbell of Ce's residence like his life depended on it. Seeing that no one was opening the door, the ringing grew louder and more frequent. Accompanied by the ringing of the doorbell was a certain someone's desperate shout, "Young master, I have something to ask of you." From the sound of the voice, it was obvious who had rung the doorbell. It was Shuang. Other than him, no one else dared to press the doorbell of Ce's residence. The ringing of the doorbell was like a basin of cold water, extinguishing the pleasant atmosphere just now. In spite of it, Yunjian and Ce were burning with passion. Even a downpour would not be able to extinguish their flames. Ce growled and got up from the bed, picking up the towel on the floor and running his fingers through his black hair before heading for the door. Shuang, who was outside the door, pressed the doorbell twice in surprise. His young master used to come out quickly. Why did he? Just as he was thinking about it, the door opened. Shuang was about to say what he wanted to say when he saw Ce, who only had a towel around his lower body. Why was his young master dressed like this today? Shuang did not ask, of course, but just as he was about to speak, Ce growled at him with a dark expression. "You get out in 3 seconds if you don't want to die." His young master had never spoken in such a furious tone, but he had said it today. In addition, Shuang knew that his young master would only lose control of his emotions in front of one person in his life and would only rage for that person. Shuang suddenly realized something. He was so scared that he quickly closed the door and ran away. "Young master, I was wrong. I'll get out, I'll get out." Shuang ran like the wind, disappearing from the place in 3 seconds. Ce had the urge to strangle Shuang. Was it cold again today? Ce was so angry that he wanted to go back to his room to shoot Shuang. However, he scratched his black hair and went back to the room with a look of frustration. Yunjian was no longer on the bed. Yunjian had gone to the bathroom. Thinking about it, Ce was even more furious. If Shuang was here, he would choke him to death. It was then that Ce felt the room turn dark. The black curtains were suddenly closed by the remote control. His surroundings instantly turned pitch black, and no light could be seen from his 5 fingers. There was a sudden glint in Ce's eyes. Just as Ce did not know what was going on, a petite figure suddenly threw herself into his arms. Si was only wearing a white towel. After the petite figure threw herself into his arms, Si could clearly feel that she was naked. Suddenly, Si felt someone bite his ear and Yun Jian's voice rang out. Happy birthday. I'll be by your side every birthday in the future. These words were not a passionate declaration of love. Many people might not know what love was, but this thing called love had already taken root and sprouted in their hearts. Yun Jian's words touched Ce for a moment. Chapter 1844. If Yun Jian was asked to name the one thing she did not regret the most after her rebirth, she would definitely say it without hesitation. The one thing she did not regret the most was being reborn and meeting him. There was no girl who did not care about her chastity. But she was willing to give her best to him and never regret it. This was Yun Jian's wish as the sorcerer god. Whether it was her as the sorcerer god or Yun Jian, she did not regret meeting him or becoming his woman. Because she knew that she was not the only one who loved him. In his heart she was something far more precious than his own life. Even if he had to sacrifice countless of his own lives in exchange for hers. He was willing. As long as she was fine. This was the wish of a divine lord. And a divine lord's life goal was not for anyone else but for her. When the two of them were joined, Yun Jian did not feel any pain because her heart did not hurt. Her heart was sweet and blissful. Although the pain of her first time was hard for Yun Jian to accept, she was willing to do it for him. The wind was gentle and the sun was bright. Under the bright sky, it was a romantic afternoon. From 12:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Ce did not let go of Yun Jian. He enjoyed her beautiful body over and over again without stopping. What an Hun organization, what kosher mercenaries, what an Hun organization was busy with, everything was meaningless to Ce. Because in his heart, Yun Jian was far more important than anything else. 8:30 p.m. After being tortured by Ce for the entire afternoon, Yun Jian was paralyzed on the bed and could not move at all. She had thought that knife wounds and gunshot wounds were the most painful injuries, but why were these things so tiring and painful as well? If she had known it would be so painful from the start, she would have waited until she was an adult before doing it. Yun Jian even wanted to kill someone now. Why didn't Shuang break it completely? It seemed like she had to kidnap Si Luo. Of course, these were just Yun Jian's thoughts. She did not regret being able to become his woman. Ce and Yun Jian were sleeping on the bed. He hugged Yun Jian tightly and refused to let go. If it weren't for Yun Jian begging him to let her go on the bed, he would probably be able to fight until the next morning. As soon as they were done, Ce walked into the bathroom and wiped Yun Jian's body carefully with a basin of water. She even wiped the blood off Yun Jian's face. Ce didn't even care about herself. She first wiped Yun Jian's body carefully, then went into the bathroom to take a cold shower. She came over and hugged Yun Jian, holding her in her arms and smelling her hair. That was great. His Xiao Jian was his now, rightfully so. If someone dared to plagiarize his Xiao Jian in the future and he spoke up again, it would be perfectly justifiable. Xiao Jian, does it hurt? Ce placed his hand on Yun Jian's stomach, feeling a little regretful about his earlier rudeness. Yun Jian turned away and ignored him. Ce panicked when he saw that. He propped himself up and turned to look at Yun Jian. Xiao Jian, where does it hurt? Let me see. Don't look. Yun Jian suddenly folded her legs and turned around to show him her back. She couldn't possibly spread her legs for him to see where it hurt. Ce had no idea what was wrong with him as he hugged Yun Jian and rubbed and blew on her. It was obvious how much he cherished Yun Jian. If the 4 leaders of an Hun group saw Ce's act of showing weakness, they would probably yell, "This isn't our young master." Yun Jian did not know what was wrong with her. Since when did her voice become like this? Yun Jian patted her cheeks lightly and shook her head in disbelief. Once she thought of what he did to her just now, Yun Jian's cheeks were redder than a red pepper. They actually did it? Cough cough. Ring ring ring. At this moment a phone rang. As if to prevent awkwardness, Yun Jian reached for her phone on the bedside table. Suddenly a hand went around her shoulder and took the phone before she did, placing it in her hand and telling her, "Don't move if it hurts." "I'll do it." He would do everything. Ce looked a little like a pug trying to please its owner. Yun Jian could not help smiling. She answered the call. It was Luo Mei asking Yun Jian to go out and play. Yun Jian agreed. After she hung up, Ce's voice followed, "You're not allowed to go. You're still hurting." Wasn't she still hurting down there? I'm not hurting anymore. Yun Jian suddenly felt shy. She pushed Ce away and quickly got up to put on her clothes. After Yun Jian got up, Ce saw a red spot on the bed where Ce and her were having sex. Yunjin was halfway through putting on her clothes when she suddenly saw this. She walked over and wanted to pull off the sheets. Ce grabbed her hand. "What's wrong?" "I'm going to shower first." Yunjin blushed and did not dare to look at Ce. Chapter 1845. The bedsheet instantly became a priceless treasure in Ce's eyes. Yunjin could not outtalk Ce in the end. She wanted to pull the bedsheet when Ce was not paying attention, but the soreness between her legs numbed her and made her legs wobble. If it were not for her good stamina, Yunjin would have knelt on the floor long ago. Yunjin, however, turned to her side and fell toward the edge of the bed instead of kneeling. If a normal person was tortured by Ce for 8 hours, they would probably not even be able to lift their legs. Yunjin had just stood up to put on her clothes and take a few steps. She had only taken a few steps when the soreness in her thighs made her unable to stand up again. He had just gone at her for 8 hours. Yunjin did not have any common sense, so she agreed to go out and play without hesitation, thinking that she could still walk. Now, however, her legs were numb. The lingering pain after the battle was not excruciating but soft. Yunjin felt like her legs were like springs when she stood up, unable to move at all. She only managed to avoid falling on the floor by pouncing on the bed. Ce scooped Yunjin up to his chest and pulled her into his embrace. "You're not allowed to go out today. You're not allowed to wash the bedsheet," Ce said domineeringly as he gripped her hand. His Xiao Jin wanted to run away the moment she became his woman? He would not allow it. "I've already made an appointment. I'll go out later," Yunjin said, too shy to look at Ce's face. Ce, who had just had sex, was not satisfied yet. He had let her go earlier because he felt that she was tired. Now that he heard Yunjin, however, Ce smirked. "Xiaojin, you're not tired? Let's continue then." As he spoke, he turned and pinned Yunjin on the bed. Yunjin's words were shoved to the back of her head by Ce as well. Before she was forced to go 3 rounds, Yunjin could only think of one word: beast. Soft and lingering moans could be heard continuously. It wasn't until 10:30 p.m. that Ce finally ended her assault. It was too late now. Yunjin did not even have the strength to lift her hand, let alone look for the rockberry. Her legs were soft as if they didn't belong to her at all. Who told her that doing such a thing would consume so much energy? At this moment, Ce's hands were on her hips. Yunjin suddenly remembered that she had agreed to go out with Luo Berry at 8 o'clock. It was already past 10 o'clock. She quickly picked up the phone and made a call. Beep, beep, beep. The phone rang 3 times. After 3 rings, Luo Mei picked up Yunjin's call and said anxiously, "Yunjin, are you okay? He didn't fall, did he? Nothing happened, right? I called you so many times but you didn't pick up. I was so worried." Rockberry's voice was heard. The phone rang but Ce pressed it down forcefully. He even set the phone's ringtone to none, before continuing to do the deed. Yunjin had actually arrived at an Hun organization on the 10th of November, which was yesterday. However, she had stayed at Luo Mei's place for a night, so Luo Mei knew that she was here. Emo-sun was very gentlemanly to Luo Mei. He had arranged for her to stay alone, unlike Shuiying, who forced Si Luo to stay in his room. Yunjin's eyes flickered when she heard Luo Mei's words. She immediately found a ridiculous excuse and said to Luo Mei, "I accidentally fell and couldn't move. That's why I didn't call you to explain." This was the most ridiculous lie that Yunjin had ever told. She didn't expect Luo Mei to believe her. "Ah, are you in pain? Do you need me to come over and take a look? Have you seen a doctor? Wait for me, I'll be right there." Luo Mei panicked. She really thought that Yunjin was injured, so she quickly spoke up. "I'm fine now. It's just a minor injury. You don't have to come over," Yunjin said to Luo Mei with a hoarse voice. "Are you really fine?" Luo Mei asked worriedly. Yunjin nodded. She wasn't really injured. If Luo Mei accompanied her to the hospital, the doctor would probably only say, "Young lady, don't overindulge in your desires at such a young age. Your voice is hoarse. Do you have a cold? You must have a good rest," Luo Berry added. At that, Yunjin glared at Ce, who could not stop his hands from fondling her breasts, only to see the silent Ce flashing her an indulgent, handsome smile. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.